to stay.
Hello and welcome back to Beyond Boards, a podcast dedicated to the actions and interests of skaters beyond skateboarding. My guest today, Tim Anderson, started skating in the early 90s in Massachusetts where he grew up. In 2004, he launched the website guymariano.com, which quickly turned into Bobshirt, where he uploaded his favorite parts from iconic 90s skate videos. He also started collecting boards from his favorite brands of that same era. In 2013, his wife Sarah founded Deckaid, a skateboarding-focused charity that showcases collector archives in celebration of skateboarding's influential history. In 2015, as part of a promotional effort for Deckaid, Tim filmed his first video interview with none other than Long Island legend Gino, and since then has produced over 30 interviews with some of the most influential skaters of all times. In 2023, Deckaid has collaborated with Girl Skateboards on their 30-year anniversary, and Tim got to film some epic interviews with Andy Jenkins, Tony Ferguson, Mike Carroll, and Rick Howard as part of the celebration. So here's my conversation with Tim. I hope you'll enjoy it. So let's just, start at the beginning. I mean, as usual, I ask my guests, how he or she started skating. And so I know that you grew up, I don't know if you were born there, but I know you grew up in Boston and eventually you moved to New York when you were around 18 or 19. But tell us about maybe growing up and finding skateboarding and how you, picked up your first board.
Yeah, so I'm not from Boston. I'm from Massachusetts, which is the state.
Right.
I'm not trying to claim Boston, but so I was born in the suburbs, and I just saw some kids skating not in the neighborhood, but some of the kids I was in junior high with, 7th and 8th grade, they were skating, and I was intrigued by it. I kind of started late compared to them. I started end of 7th grade, and I remember wanting a board so bad, but my mom wasn't she was like, I'm not going to spend money on that,
Okay.
So I got a deck from my friend. It was a Dune World Industries, just a deck, because he got a new board, and I was like, oh, can I have the deck? And I learned. So I was carpet skating without trucks or wheels for it felt like forever, but it was probably a month. Mm-hmm. And then I finally got some tracker trucks, hand me down, and some wheels, and then it was a go from there, kind of, Mm-hmm. But I started later, so
okay,
yeah.
What year was that approximately? Do you remember?
So this is about 1990, 1991, dinosaur age. Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah. But the beginning of that epic decade that has been one of your main focus regarding skating.
Yeah.
You and Eric and other people have been known for all their work and their interviews and their research around 90s skateboarding, which was a very special era in skating, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you picked up a first board and then started skating, and eventually you moved to New York. What year was that? So you were older, right? You were maybe going to college already, or?
Yeah, I was 18. I went to school in New York, so I just moved to New York. Long Island, not the city at first.
Yes.
I used to skate in Boston on the weekends, and I would see Jamal Williams around, and that was really cool. But around 1996, I moved there full-time in 1998 to New York.
Okay.
And I just fell in with a crew of kids out on Long Island, and we were up where I lived, people weren't as hungry, for lack of a better word. I met these guys, this guy Steve, Chris, and Mike on Long Island, mm-hmm. and they were so consumed with skateboarding. That's all they wanted to do, all the time. And I didn't really have friends like that where I grew up. So I met these guys, and I was just I gotta feed into this energy of just skating all the time, talking about it, watching it.
Yeah.
So I met those guys, and it kind of just took off from there.
You've talked about this in other interviews and stuff, but you actually skated with Anthony Papalardo, who was part of your crew, right, at that time?
Yeah, I mean, he was a little younger. My friend Steve started bringing him around. He was, I think he's 4 years younger than us, something like that. But before he got on workshop and stuff like that, we were skating with him a lot. I kind of fell out of touch with him when he moved to Philly, just naturally,
Yeah.
But sure. We saw him coming up as a little kid. Yeah, it was cool.
And actually, the other day you posted or you shared a story on Instagram of some footage of you skating in this, I think it's a shop video from either late 90s or early 2000s, Special Sauce,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, all our friends rode for this one shop on Long Island called Special Sauce, which is the worst name for a skate shop, but but they our friends worked there, and they stocked World stuff and they just stocked regular stuff. So, the owner wanted to make a video, and I was always filming and making videos, so I made the video for them.
Okay.
And it was just like one of our videos that we made with all our friends, but it was just a special sauce video with like a couple other people that weren't like necessarily like part of our crew. Not that, there was like no beef there, but it was just like it was just different circles, you know what I mean? So, we made that video. That was fun. I think that was around 2001 we made that video.
It's funny because I was watching, not the whole thing, but I watched your part recently, and the titles, the way they showed up, it kind of reminded me of photosynthesis for some reason.
Yeah.
Am I completely wrong in saying this, or do you see what I mean? Kind of like the...
I'm sure I got some inspiration from photosynthesis,
Because it came out maybe like a year before or like a few months before or something,
Did it?
Right? I think it came in 2000 or around there.
Yeah, 2000. So I was definitely pulling some. Like photosynthesis was a huge inspiration for me, and like Joe Castrucci's editing style, I loved it.
Yeah.
So for sure. Yeah, like when the bars come down and then the name comes out. It's like that's such like a workshop habitat. But,
right, exactly. I was watching it. I was like, oh, that's funny. Like that reminds me of something, and it took me a minute to. Oh, like the alien video. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Actually, I skipped something I wanted to ask you. Like, as you were starting to skate and like getting immersed in the culture, like, do you remember maybe the first video you ever watched, and maybe the first magazines you got your hands on? Do you remember those?
So I remember the first video I bought, I was clueless and I was going mail order, was an Acme video, and you couldn't hear the skating. It was just like the music, and even then I was hey, why can't you hear the skating?
Yeah.
But Clyde was in it, but I didn't know because there was no names. It was just like a footage tape.
Okay, I see.
And my second video was questionable, and that was the thing that like really opened my eyes. So. Yeah. As far as magazines, there's a Trans World. I can't remember the exact issue, but I remember there's a sequence on it, and it's yellow. Mm-hmm. I can't remember who it is off the top of my head. I got it at like the drugstore with my mom. I was like, can I please get this?
Yeah. So that's like early 90s then, like 1991 maybe?
Yeah. Early 91, yeah.
This is kind of random, but I heard, and maybe I'm mistaken, but I heard that Keenan Milton was or is your favorite skater of all times, if you can like qualify him as such. But I'm sure you have, like everybody, a bunch of favorite skaters. But apparently you have a special like story with him or a special connection to him.
No, not really. I mean, well, we used to see him downtown. We never skated with him, but we'd be at the same spot skating. You know what I mean? Like, but I don't even think he saw us like existing. You know what I mean? But we always held him on a really high pedestal. Oh yeah. But one time I sprained my ankle and I fell in vomit, and I look up and it's like Stephen Callis and Keenan Milton skating over to me. And I was like, fuck.
Wow.
Fucking I'm laying at the crooked benches.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just remember laying on the ground in vomit, basically. And these two guys come over. I was like, fuck, this is so embarrassing.
This is not how I pictured our first interaction.
Yeah. But it was like a brief thing. And then I got up and hobbled off and they were gone. Okay. But yeah.
And did you cross paths with them at all later?
Not really.
Keenan passed away in, I think, 2001, but...
Yeah, I only saw him in the city a few times. Yeah, not often. Okay. Like, we would see Gino every once in a while. Gino would show up at, like, local spots on Long Island. Yep. And, like, hop out of the car. But we would, like, freeze up, Be like,
it's kind of like a Gino, unicorn appearing out of nowhere. Whoa.
Yeah. But I was never, like, friends with any of those guys at all, so, yeah.
But did you get to know Gino a bit at that time? Because I know that he was eventually like the first person you interviewed for Bobshirt. That's way later, but did you get to know him a bit before that?
Not really, no. My friend Sarah, not my friend, my wife Sarah.
Yes.
She was friends with Eric Rossetti in high school, and Rossetti is like one of Gino's oldest friends. And when she was starting the whole Deckaid thing, she had this idea to do like portraits of the guys.
Yes.
I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead a little bit.
No,
but, like,
all good.
Yeah, portraits of like the guys holding their boards. Like we had this like Gino Wu-Tang Jizza board, and she had the idea. She's like, it'd be really cool for the Deckaid show if we had like photos of these guys holding these boards. Yeah. So she reached out to Rossetti, and Rossetti connected us and made it happen. Okay. And I was like, I should like film it. We should like film like a little interview to help promo Deckaid, Well, we got this guy here.
Yeah.
And that's how that started,
That kickstarted the interviews.
Yeah, exactly. And he's just like a gracious guy, so he's always been like yes to us, like whatever you need, for better or worse, So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's rad though. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember the second time I interviewed him, I was talking to Sarah. I was like, I want to bring like an old shoe. And she was like, this is ridiculous. Like, you can't. I was like, no, I think it'll be cool. Like, you can talk about shoes and like we can bring like one of these old actions. Yeah. And she's like, all right, you know. So, but my very first interview was with Anthony Papalardo, but it didn't. Oh, yeah? It didn't work out. Like, again, we were showing up to shoot him holding one of his boards for Deckaid. And that's when I was like, oh, I want to do a little interview. But I totally blew it. Like, I just had a camera, no mic. Mm-hmm. And it was super windy. And I asked him like 5 questions about the boards. And it was freezing cold. And like the audio sucked. And like we couldn't use it. I was like, oh man, I really blew it there, you know? So. But
eventually you did one with him later, right? Like with Anthony.
Yeah, eventually, yeah. Still technically not that great, but it still worked out.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. I haven't watched it in a minute, but I remember enjoying it when it came out, like the other ones, for sure. Before we get into like Deckaid and Bobshirt and the interviews and stuff, I just wanted to ask you, I read this interview you did with Farron, I think a couple years ago, maybe it was in 2020 for Slam City Skates in London. Yeah. I think you mentioned in that interview that your like regular job is actually in like film production, like doing lighting and rigging.
It is, yes.
So yeah, could you tell us just a little bit about that, how you got into that industry and how long have you been doing it and what kind of projects do you like currently work on, for example?
I've been doing it for way too long. Yeah, I got into, like, I've always been interested in video and photos and stuff like that. So I got into it thinking I was going to be a cinematographer or director of photography. And, you kind of get, it's like a hard ladder to climb up. So you kind of get like, I don't want to say stuck, but you kind of just start making money at a certain level and you kind of adjust your lifestyle to that. Yeah. And you're like, all right, I'm good. You know, like I'll just keep doing this. Yeah. And we had kids and I didn't want, it's hard to like take risks. Yeah. As you get older. So, the money had to keep coming in. So, I started doing, when I was younger, I started in movies. There were a lot of like independent movies that were shooting in New York City in the early 2000s. And then, it was a lot of music videos, which aren't desirable to do because the hours are long. And it was like a lot of, like rap videos and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think you mentioned the Sean Paul video.
Yeah, I did a Sean Paul video. And then I did a lot of like no-name videos. And, okay. It's like a huge entourage and you're trying to work around these guys on set and everyone's smoking weed and drinking. And, oh, wow. Yeah. So, but now it's mostly commercials.
Okay. And so that's still like your day-to-day job, right? Like that's what brings the money in, I guess.
Yeah, that's the day-to-day. Yeah, it's it's a little sporadic right now around the holidays. It's been a little slow, but keeps me busy.
Because like you've started doing a lot of things around skating, like in the mid-2000s. I'm not sure exactly when you started doing Bobshirt, where before it was GuyMoriano.com, and we'll talk about that. But was it easy kind of to do both things at the same time? Like do the website, uploading the videos, eventually get into like board collecting and Deckaid and all that stuff? Is it difficult, challenging to do that while doing this kind of job that you've been doing your whole career?
Not really, because it's like the shoots I do are like very project based. So it's like a 3-day shoot or a 4-day shoot or a 5-day shoot. It's not like, I don't do TV shows where you disappear for 9 months. That's what those do. So yeah, you always get like random days off. Like I'm here today talking to you on a random Wednesday, right? It's like, so there's always time. And, I always like to have like little side things, it keeps your mind going and you're not when you're just tied to your job, it gets kind of sad, so it's, sure. Yeah. It's like you get your mind out of that brain space and skateboarding is that for me. So,
yeah, definitely. Yeah. And so tell me about maybe like starting to collect boards, because like you mentioned before your first board, like the Chris Pastras, I think it was a World Industries board, graphic by Mark McKee. Yeah. So tell me about like getting that first board and how it kind of planted a seed for you to start this whole thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I started collecting skateboard collecting. Let's see. I started collecting boards. I want to say like around like 2004. Mm-hmm. So I get almost like 20 years ago now. And like, I was like really interested in the boards I rode as a kid, like the Dune, that Dune board was like the grail, as us nerdy collectors say. Yeah. And then it was like a lot of, I wrote a lot of chocolate boards and like aesthetics boards, some of the aesthetics boards I have, I saved from then, like just a couple, but I was like, I'm going to save this. Mm-hmm. But, like back then, like in the 90s, I didn't save anything. I saved my used boards for a while. Oh yeah. But yeah, everything disappeared at one point. So, yeah, I don't know. It just like, I got really into the ephemera of skateboarding. Like, I kept all my videos through the years, and I never wanted to get rid of them. I kept all my magazines. But board collecting, it kind of like took over in 2005 to 2012 or something like that, Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And, yeah, it got to be a bit much. And now I'm like totally priced out now. Like, it's super expensive now. So, I don't partake, but I'm still like I still see what's going on. I'm still checking eBay. See what pops up. I love it, and I still talk to all the guys, like I'll trade every once in a while. I just did a trade recently, mm-hmm. But, yeah, I don't know. It's fun.
I was watching yesterday or the day before your Skate Hoarders episode with for Transworld, I think.
Yeah.
As we're speaking, like the people who are listening can't see, but I see behind you the boxes with the boards.
Yeah.
And it's like pretty crazy the amount of boards you've collected throughout the years and in perfect condition and stuff. Like it's it's pretty insane. Like I don't know if many people have as an impressive collection as you do. Like it's
there's definitely better collections out there than I have. But some guys they don't broadcast it or whatever, or they're just, or some people do, but mm-hmm. then they sell it all or something like that. Like Nick Halkias has an insane skateboard collection. Yep, the skateboard museum, right? Yeah, skateboard museum. Like mm-hmm. It's insane, and like every once in a while, like he'll put drips and drabs up. Like he'll just put something up, and it's like amazing, Mm-hmm. And then this guy Jesse Geeboy has another. Like he never puts anything up, but he's got like the best skateboard collection. He lives in I think Wisconsin. Okay. It's a skateboard collected community. Like everyone's like, oh, it's filled with like crazy people, and there are some crazy people, but they always get weeded out, kind of. And like the good normal people, the good crazy. I mean, it is a community, and the weird shady people get weeded out eventually. So yeah, exactly. Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah. And like Sean Cliver's book, Disposable, like when I first started collecting, that came out, and that was like, wow, this is amazing. Even though I can't relate to a lot of the stuff in it, like the 80s stuff, but I'm like, oh, this is so cool. Mm. It also like vindicated skateboard collecting in a way. It was like, oh, this is a real thing. There's somebody made a book about it. Yeah. So you mentioned like collecting boards, and you said the VHS tapes. You also kept a lot of the ones you bought like in the 90s and stuff. Yeah. And so you have a lot of boards, tapes, magazines. You also have a lot of shoes that we could see in the Skate Hoarders episode, like a lot of action shoes and some stuff like that. Do you have like other kind of stuff, or is it the gist of it is that like the boards, shoes, magazines, or do you have like kind of just random things that are like linked to skateboard culture, or is it mostly those things? It's mostly those things, but I mean, little stickers here and there, like little pieces of, like I have a brick from the Banks. I have a brick from EMB. Yeah. And then John Arbuckle he was at Pulaski Park, Freedom Plaza, and they were doing construction there, and he gave me, and there was like all this broken up stone, mm-hmm. and he brought me home a piece of Pulaski Park too. So I have wow. that's kind of like the trifecta right there. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Pretty cool. But yeah, like little things like that. But mm-hmm. I don't really collect anything else, And like as far as the shoes, I think I have like 10 pairs. Okay, so it's not like 200 or something. Yeah, okay. No, and they're like slowly dying. Like every time I take them out, they're like fading away into nothing, which is fine. I mean, that's it can't stay like that forever, for sure. Exactly. Yeah. So tell me about maybe starting Bobshirt. So as I just mentioned earlier, like it started, I think, in 2004, and you first started a website called GuyMariano.com. Yeah. And so that was kind of the precursor to Bobshirt. I read, I think that was also in the interview with Farron, you said that you changed it to Bobshirt because like when you started Guy Mariano, you thought, okay, like Guy's kind of gone, like he's not really skating anymore. He kind of disappeared in the skate scene. And you didn't expect him necessarily to come back, but he did like around that time, like because I think Fully Flared was 2007. So he must have started skating again, maybe in 2005 or something. I'm not sure. Something the exact like that, dates. Yeah. So you decided to change it to Bobshirt, but so tell me maybe about just before we get into Bobshirt about, launching a website and what was the idea behind that website? Yeah, so the idea was like, it was like there was no YouTube yet. And I remember meeting
Right.
kids and they hadn't seen Trilogy. And so there was like no way for people to see any of these old videos. So I was like, fuck it. I'm going to make a website and like upload all my favorite video parts. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did. So I put like Gino's part on there from like all this, you know, all my favorite parts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't know what, like, it was a mess. Like, the coding is still a mess because I just kind of walked away from it, but I just keep it going, you know, and I just update the little news section. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I learned like some crude coding and I learned how to embed QuickTime videos and stuff like that. And so the idea was to get videos on the internet for people to watch for free. That was the idea. Yeah. Okay. And just to expose people to video parts that were gone that you couldn't watch anymore, like Tantrum video, parts from Mouse, parts from FTC videos, 101, like all that. Yeah, early Plan B, all that stuff, you know. So that was the main idea of it.
Okay.
And I also wanted to learn how to make a website, so I was like, fuck it, I'll give it a whirl, right? So I'm not that good at it, but it was fun, you know? And so that's what GuyMariano.com was. I was like, I'm going to put all my, what I think are the best video parts on this domain, and people can watch it. And then I remember getting hit, like, so I guess the link got shared around, and like, I had to up my server or whatever.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, because like everybody was like, the files were huge.
A lot of people were tuning in and like going to the website. Yeah.
So I had to like up it. And
was that pretty quick? Between when you started and when people actually started massively coming to the site, was that a long time? It
was pretty quick.
It happened.
It was pretty quick. Transworld put it in their magazine, like they put a big thing. I remember somebody got the magazine, like, dude, that website you do, they put a whole thing in Transworld about it. Not a whole thing, but like they put a little thing. I was like, oh, sweet.
That must have brought in a lot of people for sure.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. And then, it just kind of took off from there. But then, you know, I just kind of was like, all right, that's it. I'm just going to let it sit. And then I had the idea to start doing like little email interviews with like Ronnie Bertino and stuff like that. But those weren't that good because I would email the questions and then they would email, you know, it was very stale, I guess. So
yeah, well, yeah, I can see. I mean, I've never done an email interview, but I can imagine it's well, you don't have much control over what the person is gonna provide you with. You know, like when we're having a conversation like this, you can't control it, but I mean, you can at least, you know, you're in a conversation, you can kind of gauge how much a person is willing to share or whatever, you know. But if you're just sending in questions and hopefully the person will respond, but you don't know when, you don't know how much, how long the answers are gonna be. And so that's it's kind of a gamble.
And you can't do follow-up questions. I mean, it worked for me because I'm like super shy, so like the idea to like get on the phone with one of these guys, I was like, I'm not crazy about that, you know. So I was like, I'll email you the questions and you email them back and I'll put them on the website. And, you know, and it was like, but they weren't, I don't even think they're up anymore. You know, they're just like...
I couldn't find them. I was trying to find them, but I didn't. But maybe they are, but I just couldn't find them.
I think you can find them via Google or something like that. You know, or like what... like, but it's... Don't find them.
No need to go there. Yeah, the video interviews are good enough. Just stick to that. Yeah,
I guess so. I don't know. So, yeah.
And so, as I said, like eventually, like Guy Mariano made a comeback. How did you learn about him, like coming back to the skate scene, and how did you come up with the name Bobshirt? How did you transition into that?
It was a mix of that, but I was also getting, because I had an email for the website. It was like 101, whatever. And so I would also get emails, and people would be like, "Hey, Guy, I love your site." And I was like, "Oh, this is not, you know, like Guy Mariano is way too cool to make a website for himself." You know what I mean? So that it was also that I was like, "This is not the intention." You know what I mean? I don't want people to think this is Guy Mariano putting his own website out there, you know, or anything like that. So I was like, all right, this is kind of over. And I never asked permission. You know, I was like, I just used the guy's name, you know, so it was like, this isn't a good look. So.
Did you actually ever cross paths with him, with Guy? Like maybe at the 30-year girl reunion recently?
Yeah, he was there, but I didn't talk to him. So.
Okay. Oh, too bad. Yeah, because that would be funny. Like, I wonder if he heard about this and what his thoughts are on it.
Yeah, I'll get him one day.
Yeah. Oh, hopefully. Yes. And so the name Bobshirt is actually, from what I understand, it comes from like this collection of T-shirts that all the brands at World were selling shirts with the Bob tag inside them, right? Is that where the inspiration came from?
It is. And it's like the worst name. I totally regret the name. Like, it's just like not an easy name to work with. You know, people call me Bob all the time. And I'm like, like, I like did it on a whim. I was like, I got to change his name. I'll just do this, whatever. Not thinking I'd still be doing it 15 some odd years later, you know?
Yeah.
And so, I I do regret the name. I mean, it's fun. It's funny. Who cares,
at
right?
this point, I mean,
it doesn't matter, right? But
sure,
like you hear like Chrome Ball, you're like, damn, that's a sick name, you know?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's true. But I think Eric would probably say the same thing. I think he'd actually said the same thing when I interviewed him about the name Crowball being like, oh, this is kind of stupid, like whatever.
Yeah.
But names happen for a reason, and then they stick, and for better or for worse, they're there, and it's how it was meant to be. So.
Yeah, and probably in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'll run this for another 6 months, and then it'll burn out, and that's it. You know, and it's gone through phases of burning out and coming back in. You know, it's like this. It's like riding a wave of, oh, we're back in, you know, and then all of a sudden it's like dormant for a while, and I mean that's life, right? So
exactly, yeah.
You get to it when you can, so. Yeah, but the name Bobshirt, it was the tags and the world logos. I think Megan said Spike picked that name for the T-shirts.
Okay.
I guess that's I don't know. And I used to wear those shirts when I was a kid, Bob, and it was like they were terrible. They were just big giant shirts with all our favorite graphics on it. So I was like, fuck it, I'll run with that, and that's it.
I don't know, but it's cool and it's easy to remember. So it's I think it's a good name. I like it.
I know, but good.
And it's funny actually because I'm jumping to the interviews, but like I read in that interview with Farron that actually when someone watches one of your video interviews, so the first thing we see is that we hear the music and like I'm not going to imitate it. It's very hard to do. But like there's the kind of the Snuff logo thing that appears, but it's actually written Bobshirt in there.
Yeah,
I never noticed that. I just read it in Farron's interview. I was like, oh, really? And then I went to one of your interviews and I looked at it and I was like, I don't see it. And then I was like, oh, wait, is that a T? Oh, and this is... is that, wow, like I would have never guessed it. Like, Does that come up often? Like, do people actually figure it out? Because like I never saw that.
Not really. I mean, people might just think it says Snuff, you know, because that's from the old Snuff video. So they might just think that, or, you know. Yeah, I'm constantly trying to screw myself, apparently. So. I'm like hiding in my own shadow. But not really. I don't know. I've been running that logo forever, but it's not a good logo to run because it's like you have to like squint. You're like, what is that? Is it just a bunch of lines? You know? So
but it's kind of cool though. Also that it's like I loved realizing this the other day. Like I was like, oh wow, I've been watching these videos for years, and I've just noticed this now. Like this is hidden little nugget thing. That's great. I love that. So whoever's listening to this, go watch the videos and
squint your eyes and
exactly.
Yeah.
And so about like doing the interviews and stuff. So you mentioned that as you were starting the website, so first Guy Mariano, then Bobshirt, you were putting videos up there, like video parts. Yeah. Then you started doing these like email interviews, and eventually you started doing video interviews. But I think there's quite a bit of time between those two, right? Like because the first one, you mentioned Anthony, doing one with Anthony, but then the first one with Gino, at least the first one that is on YouTube, the first Gino one is I think mid 2010s. I'm not sure what year it came out, but
I want to say 2015, maybe 2014. Maybe 2015. I don't know. Yeah, I think 2015. Yeah.
It was a little while between like those email interviews and the first video one then.
Yeah. Like I had a couple kids in that time and like I wasn't doing much and I was just and like I would get the renewal notice for the website and I'd be like, all right, I'll pay the money and let it ride out for another 2 years or whatever, you know. Okay. So and every once in a while I would like hit the news section if like I saw something cool, but like I was like kind of tuned out for a little bit. Always riding the skateboard, but I wasn't like consuming skateboarding, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So, you know, you have kids and you're stressing and, you know.
That's a whole job in itself. Yeah. I mean, I don't have kids, but I have lots of nieces and nephews and I can see from a distance how much like time and energy it requires.
Yeah. So. Yeah. You also want to be present too.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Definitely.
But I think Deckaid is 10 years old this year, so the interviews must be about 10 years old. So 2014.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so.
because like doing Deckaid with Sarah was kind of the Kickstarter for the video interviews. Like you said, like she had the idea of photographing the skaters holding their boards, the iconic boards in their hands. And that's what brought you to interview Gino for the first time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would never do Deckaid. That's all Sarah's deal. Like, I'm too introverted for that kind of situation, you know? But she was like, you know, we got all these boards, like, stuffed under beds, and apparently they're cool, you know? And she was trying to raise money for a local skate park. She's like, we should do a fundraiser, like, art show. Mm-hmm. I was like, man, nobody's going to want to go to do that. You know, like, nobody's going to want to go see that. But it was like, it ended up being a really big success. And she was like, I want to keep going with this Deckaid thing. So...
Did she have an interest in skating prior to meeting you? Did she skate a bit when she was younger? Or?
Not real. I think she skated when she was a little kid, but not really. You know, like she like knew about Gino, and like she was like this guy Raymond Tate. She was like tuned into Long Island skateboarding as a kid. Like it was like a group of people that used to run together, and so she was like she knew about all those people, you know, but and obviously being friends with Eric Rossetti, but but she was just like she's into charity, and she's like, let's put these boards to use kind of thing. Yeah, you know. Yeah. So yeah.
Did it take a lot of convincing on her part to get you to do that? Because as you said, like you being quite introverted, was it challenging to say yes at first? Like I can imagine you being not so stoked on it at first, maybe, and being a little shy to do it, or.
Yeah, every time it takes a lot of convincing. It did. It's also like embarrassing. It's like this weird hoarder thing, you know. It's like, oh wow, you know, people are like, these are all yours, but they're not all mine. That was just one show, basically. Yeah, it takes a little convincing. Like I'm in now, obviously, but
sure.
Yeah, as long as we can get other collectors involved, it's way more fun. You know?
And also it brings a lot of different like energy in the room and like lots of different boards and eras and stuff. So.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that first Deckaid show, I think, was in 2013, around there. And so the purpose of Deckaid is to raise money for charities, if I understood correctly. And so I think the first one you actually raised money for was Skateistan, or one of the first ones.
Yeah, that was technically the second one. The first one we did in our town for the skate park. The second one was for Skateistan. Sarah was on the board of Skateistan later on. So,
okay.
Yeah, she got involved like that, but it was for Skateistan. That was Sarah's choice. Yeah, it was good. We did it in Brooklyn, New York City. We did I wouldn't do this again, but we teamed up with Sean Cliver, and we did a Keenan Milton print of his first blind graphic.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
Which was great, and we loved it, but it's like, you can't, I don't know, like, looking back, it's like, you can't use, like, Keenan's name, you know, and it was just kind of like a misstep. I mean, nobody got mad, nobody said anything, everybody was excited, but it was like, I wouldn't do something like that again, you know, using somebody's name like...
I understand, but at the same time, it wasn't like you were doing this for your own profit. You were giving this money to charity, and it was for a good purpose.
Right,
so,
totally.
It was respectful. And it was out of love for Keenan's legacy.
Right, yeah. So, yeah. And, like, the Keenan Milton Foundation wasn't a thing yet, you know what I mean? So it was like, we were just like, we were a little naive, I guess, but, you know, it was no ill intentions. And, I mean, again, nobody said anything, but it was like, you gotta be careful, right?
Yeah, definitely. So you were raising money this one time for Skateistan, but after that experience, you figured like you'd rather maybe donate to charities that are more local. Not to say that Skateistan is bad or anything. Of course, it's great, but like you wanted to maybe raise money for more local and smaller kind of charities.
Yeah, that was Sarah's idea. She was like, you know, we're going to start going to all these cities because like a lot of people are reaching out. So she was like, why don't we raise money for a charity within that city and just kind of make it more cohesive? So that was the idea behind that. So every time we go to a city, you know, we ask around, we ask the shop owner, do you know a good charity? You know, it's got to be a 501c3 not for profit like we are, because we obviously can't give money to non 501c3s. Okay. So just work within the city that we're in and keep the money in that circle kind of thing. So
sure.
Yeah.
For example, for this most recent one with Girl, like what did the money go to? Do you remember what charities you donated the money to?
So that was completely different because Girl was like, we want to give a charity to Deckaid. You know what I mean? Because it was... Oh, okay. Yeah. So for that, all the money will come to Deckaid, and then legally, like, we can't spend it on anything besides another Deckaid show, right? So they basically funded our next Deckaid show.
Okay.
So that's what they did there. Yeah. But I Sarah was talking to me the other day. She's like, I want to give to a charity in LA because, we came into this, generous auction benefit. We're the beneficiaries of that generous auction from girls. She's like, we should give some of the money back to us to a LA charity. Sure. So yeah, we're talking about that. We had a board meeting the other day and Sarah floated that idea to them and everybody liked it. So we're trying to like explore what charity to give some money to. So.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, but that was different. Usually, like, the tables totally turned because they invited us.
Yes.
And they're like, yeah. And so we're like, all right, that's cool. Yeah, so that was a trip.
Yeah, I'm sure. I want to ask you about that maybe towards the end. But so to come back a little bit to the interviews, the idea came from Sarah wanting to shoot like the portraits of all the skaters holding the boards. So you interviewed Gino first. And as you mentioned in the Fair interview, you weren't quite satisfied with the result. Like it was good, but it was not maybe what you had hoped for. And and again, it was like one of your first times doing this. So obviously you can't nail it perfect the first time.
Right.
And so do you remember maybe who were some of the following guests that you've had on Bobshirt after Gino?
Gino, I think Jamal was next. Jamal Williams. That was like a personal one. I was like, because I was always a big fan, and I had a lot of his boards. Like the criteria is kind of tricky because it's all around ephemera, right?
Yes.
So I have to have their boards first of all.
Yeah. Or
access to their boards. It was Jamal. I think then the real Anthony interview. I think Bobby Pulio. Which almost didn't happen. I remember like Mike Regan and I went to meet him and we were like hanging out with him and he's like, I don't know if I want to do this, I know. And then finally he was like, all right, let's do it. So, yeah. But speaking of like technicalities of the interviews, like I've made a lot of technical mistakes on the interviews, like because doing the camera stuff isn't my, like on those days, it's not my priority, and it's hard to like, usually they're so last minute. So like, I can't like get a camera guy and there's zero budget. So I can't pay anybody. Right. Yeah. So it's like, like for the Bobby one, I think like the auto white balance was set. So it kept changing colors. That's happened a couple times.
Oh,
and like, sometimes focus is way off. Like I'll be watching the footage. I'm like, oh man, it's all out of focus, And it's like, obviously it's too late. Right.
Yeah.
And like, there's like with wedding, there was like a huge sound issue, it's like, there's always something. Cause like, not like, I just kind of like set the camera up and I'm like, I just let it ride. And I'm like focused on the person, obviously.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, I've made a lot of technical errors, but
yeah. But again, you have to go through that to learn and to figure out what to do right and stuff, and it's all part of the process. So
it's all part of the process. Yeah, I'm still making mistakes, but that's
for sure. Yeah, it keeps it fun.
Yeah, it keeps it fun.
And so when I interviewed Eric, he told me that I asked him like who were some of his influences as far as like interviewers, like people in skating and outside of skating, interviewers that had influenced him in his style of interviewing, if you want.
Yeah.
And he mentioned a bunch of people. I think there was Charlie Rose. I can't remember all of them, but one of them was Nardwuar.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting, like relating to you, because there's some similarities in what he does in the sense that he brings... So for people who are listening and who don't know who Nardwuar is, he's this Canadian interviewer. He does like a lot of musician interviews. And like you, they're filmed. The whole thing is quite different from what you do, but it's similar in the sense that he brings like items that he shows to the musician, whether it's like an old disc, a poster, whatever, something, of an old VHS type or something. And he shows that to the musician, and it usually strikes something like a memory. It triggers a memory for them from back then when they were like a child or something. There's some similarities in what you do with Bobshirt, with your Bobshirt interviews. So I was wondering if Nardwuar had been an influence at all when you first started doing Bobshirt, or did you kind of hear about him later, or like,
Yeah, I heard about him later. And I remember somebody commented in one of the videos. They were like, oh, it's like Nardwuar for skateboarding. And I looked at Nardwuar and I was like, this guy is amazing. And now I'm a huge fan. It was just like we were bringing the boards for the photos. So I handed the guys the boards on the thing and I would bring the video. So it just kind of happened organically, but definitely some similarities. Like I wouldn't, that guy's amazing though. Like the one with like Wu-Tang is so good.
Oh yeah, where they're all in this room and it's like mayhem and
yeah. And I think it's like the RZA and the RZA is just like blown away by that guy. It's so good. Yeah.
The research he does for his guests is like pretty insane. Like I don't know how he gathers all this information on the guests that he has, like, but he seems to dive super deep and go super far. Deep. Yeah, I don't know how much time he dedicates to research, but it must be crazy. Like
childhood nicknames and stuff like that. It's just like, yeah, like super cool stuff. I love that.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, the reactions from the guests and stuff is,
Yeah.
So there's definitely some similarities with Bobshirt. I discovered Nardwuar too a few years ago, maybe after I had discovered Bobshirt. But just when Eric told me about this, I was like, oh yeah, actually that makes sense. Like Bobshirt is kind of a Nardwuar of skating, somewhat, you know?
Yeah. I mean, maybe after I watched Nardwuar, I was like, I'm going to bring more stuff. You know what I mean? So maybe, I mean, you get inspiration from everywhere. So I could see that definitely happening, you know? Mm-hmm.
Also, one question I had in mind was, again, in the Farron interview, you said that sometimes when you go to meet with someone for a Bobshirt interview, so you'll bring a bunch of boards, maybe some shoes, like a bunch of stuff that will resonate with their own journey with skating.
Yeah.
And you've said that sometimes you've given some of these items to the pro, let's say, like for, I don't know, Wenning or whoever, because like the person in question didn't have like the board in question or something.
Right.
And so I was wondering, like, was there ever a time where you gave something, but you were kind of, as you were doing it, you were regretting it already, kind of like, oh, like, but this is the only one I have, and like it makes more sense that I give it to this person. It's like their poor board or something, but I think I only keep it, or.
I think I only gave away one board. I've given away, like I gave Wenning some photos, I think, but I think I've only given away one board, and that was a Carl Watson profile deck.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, I love that board, but like there's not another one out there, you know? So I was just like, oh, fuck it. Just take it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, like I paid, like, there was a time in skateboard collecting where I was like picking up like profile boards. Like it's like mid-90s tiny skateboard companies. Mm-hmm. And there was a time in skateboarding where you could get those on eBay for retail or less. Like they were just wow. It was some like leftover stock. So I got all that stuff for like nothing. You know what I mean? So I was like, I was like, fuck, screw it. I'll give it to him. You know,
yeah. Okay.
There was one, like Tony Ferguson wanted his couch board and he hit me up. And I was like, yeah, I didn't say yes, but I was like, I knew for a fact there was like 10 of them at Girl, because I had just been there. I was like, we found like 10. So I was like, you should hit up Rick.
Hit up Girl.
Yeah. And I remember being there. I was like, oh, Tony wants this board, so let's put it to the side. And like I checked in with him like 5 months later. I was like, did you ever get that board? He's like, no, man. I was like,
oh, shit.
So,
too bad.
Yeah, but it's there for him.
Yeah,
I know that for a fact. Yeah, but I mean,
it's his former sponsor. Like, you only have one.
Yeah. Sure. But I mean, if like push came to shove, and he was like, "Man, I really want that board. I can't get it. I'd you know, whatever."
I'm sure. Yeah. It must be tough sometimes, though. Yeah. Do you have sometimes? Does it happen much, like during these interviews or outside of the interviews, like people asking you if you'll either sell them or give them like a board or something?
Not really. Like, it's funny. Like, I'll be like interviewing a guy, and they'll be like, "Yeah, I don't have it," and I'm like, "Oh, you should have it." They're like, "No, I don't care." Like, they don't have this. They're just like, if they probably had like 50 pro boards, and this is just one of them, kind of, or they don't have the same. They like live the life of being a pro skateboarder, so the actual skateboard isn't. It's like not that much of a trophy for them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, it's so they're not that interested in the ephemera of it, because they live that life. They like actually lived it. I was on the outside watching, so like any little drips and drabs that comes down the ladder, I'm like, yeah, this is amazing. But they're like, I don't know. I was on that trip in Europe and I lived the life, right?
Yeah, so. I don't need the stupid board or
right.
Yeah. I understand. And some people, I think, are less attached to objects.
Totally.
It doesn't have the same resonance with them as it does for other people. So.
Yeah, lucky them.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, Nardwuar does something kind of close to what you do. But as you were getting started with Bobshirt and kind of doing more and more interviews, did you try to get maybe inspiration from other interviewers, either inside or outside of skating, or were there? Or did you kind of try to come up with a very different format, or?
I mean, I do remember watching the Gino Epically Latered, and they were in the poet shop, and they had all the boards on the ground, and they touched on that for a very brief amount of time. I'm like, man, that should be an hour just talking about the boards. So like that's basically, I took that and I was like, I'm gonna make this an hour. You know what I mean?
Okay, I see.
But like, I mean, I like Terry Gross interviews. I think she's amazing. Howard Stern interviews are amazing. Mm-hmm. Eric's interviews are amazing. But mine are different. Mine are like more juvenile, I guess. You know, like I don't come up with, you know, I don't like Eric comes up and you guys come up with like really good, thoughtful questions. I have ephemera.
I wouldn't put myself in the same category as I would put Eric and Farron in the same. Yeah,
absolutely. I would, but like Farron,
like super precise interviews, questions. I mean, sorry.
Right. Like I have mine laid out mentally, but it's all through objects. And like, I don't, you know, so it's like, I'll start here and then there and hopefully something good comes up, you know? Yeah. And I feel like I'm like getting out of it in a way, you know, like I'm like relying on objects to do a good interview. Right.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, it's great because it's like the object conveys an emotion, a memory.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point of like, you give I'm blanking on the name of the brand. You just mentioned Carl Watson, the board brand he was writing for.
Profile,
thank you. Yeah. So you hand him this board, and that all of a sudden, like he probably hasn't seen a profile board in years or something, or
right.
And so that must bring a like rush of memories coming back and stuff. And to capture that on film and then to develop with him and stuff, I mean, that's a great conversation starter.
No, I mean, I have a ton of fun doing it and just like handing them the object and like unpacking the whole situation, and I love that. But it's not as distinguished as like a chrome ball interview for sure.
It's different. I mean, there's place for both, and I love both equally.
Yeah.
So
Mine are like more like loose and like schoolyard, you know. Not loose. I don't want to say loose, you know, but like mine are more just juvenile, you know.
Yeah. But it's great. It's great. I love that energy and I love also that it's become much longer in like more like there's more content basically, because like the first ones were shorter and now like I think that's from a little while back, but I love the Dill one he did with like also Bill Strobeck was kind of around and participating a bit in the thing.
Yeah,
that one was quite long. I think like over an hour or something.
Yeah, that cracked an hour. That one was funny. Like we were talking, and I was like, all right, I think we got it. He's like, you don't want to talk about FA or anything? I was like, oh, yeah, I guess we should talk about FA.
Oops.
So, like, in my head, there's, like, 2 sections to that interview, like, all this stuff, and then FA, you know. So.
Okay.
Because, you know, I'm old, so. But,
but I mean, for you, like, when you think about Dill, you think mostly maybe of the Dill from that back then, like the 101, Alien.
Yeah.
Not to say that he's not doing something interesting with FA, but it's a whole different part of his life and journey with skating. And it doesn't hold the same value for you because you didn't grow up worshiping kind of FA like maybe kids today are doing, you know?
Right. Absolutely. So, yeah, the interviews I'm going to say they're hard for me because I am a very shy, introverted person. So I go through like stages of these interviews where I'm like, I get excited to do it. And then as it comes closer, I'm like horrified to actually meet up with this person. Not because of who they are or anything. I'm just like, I just get anxiety over it. Yeah. And then I get there and like once the camera's rolling, like I just like disappear from myself and it just like runs, you know, and like I have a blast. I'm like, this is great. You know, I'm like in it.
Yeah.
And then I love to edit them. I love to like piece together all the footage. And then like 2 weeks later, I'm like, I never want to do that again. You know? It's like this, I don't know what it is. Because sometimes I'm meeting up with these people that I don't know. And sometimes I'm alone. Like I met up with Retta. I was alone. Like I had met him a few times, but it's super awkward, you know?
Yeah,
it's like,
a little bit.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know. So, but you know, that's that wave. It's like anxiety, dread, joy.
Yeah.
And then
I can totally relate to that, and I'm sure most people who do interview-based stuff, like you, like me, like Eric, Farron, and other people, like there's this like excitement before the interview, and then a lot of stress right as it's starting, and then maybe Eric told me this, but like the 5 first minutes of an interview can be a little bit awkward, just because you're getting in this mode, kind of. But it takes a little bit of time to just kind of warm up and get in this state of mind or something. But then once you're there, it kind of organically happens. And like I recently interviewed, just as a fun story, but I interviewed Greg Hunt recently.
Yeah, that's huge.
And I was like super stoked. And So what happened is I was supposed to interview him on like a Sunday night, and so I got on the Zoom call, but he didn't. And so I waited like 20 minutes, half an hour, and he wasn't like getting on the thing. So I was like, oh shit, maybe you forgot. I don't know, maybe something happened, whatever. So I shoot him an email. Doesn't answer, so I'm like a little bummed because I've been waiting for a while. You know, I was like a little disappointed, but at the same time, again, I understand. Like Greg Hunt is Greg Hunt; he has better shit to do. And then so I get on the phone call with like my cousin or something, and just talking about some other shit, and then all of a sudden I get a text from Greg. He's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I just woke up, and this never happens. Like my alarm didn't work or something.
Yeah,
are you still available? I can do the interview right now." And so I hung up with my cousin and jumped on the Zoom call. And we started talking, and then we had like the best time. Like we talked for 3 hours, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was incredible. He was like so generous with his time, with his stories, and so kind, so humble.
Yeah.
And I finished that interview with just a rush of like adrenaline and joy. Like I don't think I've ever experienced something like that before. It was like pretty insane. I was like, wow. Like kind of like a skater who does an epic trick like that he's been battling for a long time or something. I guess it was something along those lines, like super like excitement to the max or something. It was pretty crazy.
I totally know that feeling. I don't get that feeling until I get home and look at the footage and make sure the sound was recording or anything like that. Yeah. Because in my mind, I'm a bit of a pessimist. So I'm like, oh, maybe the sound was, something's fucked up or something, So, but I know that feeling for sure.
Yeah.
It's also a little bit of relief. You're like, all right, that worked. Like, I think I got decent stuff. Right. Yeah. And like the people are always nice and generous with their time. You know what I mean?
For sure.
It's like, I don't know. So there's something like when you're just doing it for yourself, people like that. You know what I mean? And they're just like, oh, yeah, this is cool. You're not like doing it for a big conglomerate or whatever.
Exactly. But, it's very authentic.
Yeah.
And so about like, again, doing these interviews, I was wondering how much time do you usually spend researching a guest? Because like, as you said, so you prepare, like, for example, you go meet Wenning or, I don't know, Carl Watson or something. I guess you go through your collection, pick out the boards that you're going to bring to him.
Yep.
Maybe the shoes or some other stuff, the magazines, the VHS tapes. Do you do also a bit of research as in like maybe checking out some of their parts, maybe reaching out to a few friends for some stories or something? Like, do you do other stuff like that, or do you just really focus on the items that you're actually going to bring to the interview?
No, I do as much research as I possibly can. Yeah. It starts with the objects, and I kind of have a mental picture of how it's going to unfold. Mm-hmm. And then I if like Eric has interviewed them already, I'll reread that more just to make sure I don't ask the same question. Because that's like, I don't want to step on anybody's toes by mistake. Like I might have read that interview 3 years ago, and then subconsciously you come up with the same question, and then it's just not a good look to ask the same question, right? Yeah. It's like it's very disrespectful to the original person that did the interview, right? So but I do is I read their old interviews, I watch all their video parts, I read their magazine interviews if they have any. I try to, just like you, I try to do as much research because I want to go in as fully educated on this person as I possibly can be, right? So I don't miss anything. So yeah. And there's so many people out there. It's like, there's so many skaters. It's like, all right, I'm doing this guy. Just like, I'm all about this guy right now. So you just do like a deep dive, Yeah. And so, yeah.
When you decide I'm going to interview this person, like you agree, the person agrees, sure, I'll do a Bobshirt interview. Do you ask them for a specific amount of time for you to be able to have prepared enough for the interview? Or do you, for example, if someone told you, oh, tomorrow, Guy Mariano is available tomorrow for an interview, would you be able to do that? Because if you have only a day of preparation, of course, you're not going to do as much research and stuff. And so you can still do a good interview, but maybe it won't be as detailed and as deep and stuff. So...
Yeah, a lot of them are crimes of opportunity. So a lot of them some of them have been a day's notice, and you're just kind of like, oh, this guy's in New York and he said yes. All right, let me just figure this out. And like, sometimes you only get one shot, and that's just what it is. So
yeah.
Yeah, like there's some guys in my head where I've been mentally preparing for an interview forever, right? Mm-hmm, so it's like if I ever get Rob Welsh, if he ever shows up in New York, I'm ready, stuff like that. Or like, there's certain people. But sometimes it's very short notice. But I do, you asked if I call around. I do ask around for questions, suggestions, and like for the girl guys, Meza was great for that. Like he always had good hints or something like that. But I find I don't get good. A lot of guys are like, I don't know, man. Like I can't think of anything, or something like that. So sometimes it just doesn't work out. But
yeah.
you got to ask, because if you don't ask, you're definitely not going to get anything, right? So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's funny, I was just thinking, you mentioned earlier that you were quite introverted and a bit shy and stuff, but I feel like doing these interviews is much harder than what I do, for example, because most of the interviews I do are on a Zoom call, so I do it from the comfort of my home at an agreed time and stuff, and it's not like I'm, like you're doing it then in person, on the streets, with like different elements that can kind of, disturb the whole thing, like for example, the Tony Ferguson one, you got kicked out of J-Quan and stuff.
I like that though. I thought
that was
it's
fun. Great. It's amazing. It's really cool. But like, I feel like you didn't choose the easy route. That's what I'm saying. Like you chose to do something that is, it's challenging. Like to first of all get these people in front of a camera, agree to do an interview for like an hour or something, and then like compose with all the different elements of like you're in the streets, you might be disturbed by traffic, by some people just walking by. You have to make sure your camera is running right, and like it's a whole fucking it's pretty crazy.
I do I love doing it on the streets, because I like movement in the background, and it's just not so stale. And if somebody's bored, they can look at the weirdo in the background. You know what I mean? Something like that. Like there's always something going on. Only a couple times have people come up and be like, "Oh, is this a Bobshirt interview?" Like that happens.
Oh yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah. Like so that's kind of cool. But like it's New York City, so nobody even notices you're doing anything. People they're just like
in their own bubble.
Yeah. Keep plowing through, but. Yeah, it's tricky. Usually, you try to make it as easy as possible on the guest after they say yes. So you're like, I'll meet you anywhere, anytime, anywhere, just to make it easy. And so they say yes, and you find out where they're staying. You go on Google Street View. You try to find a shady corner or something that doesn't seem so busy. Like Google Street View is my location scouting for these interviews.
Oh, yeah.
So like before we show up, I usually have an idea of where we're going to shoot it. So But usually something like you'll get to that spot and they're like doing construction right across the street. You got to, it's a lot. And like the guy's just like staring at you, you're like, all right, I got to figure this out, so, but yeah, it's not, and it's just skateboard interviews, so I shouldn't get stressed about it, but that's just my human makeup and my own anxiety. So I do. Like, and I'm also like, it's somebody else's time, and I don't want to waste somebody's time, right? So it's like, all right, I'll do the best I can.
Exactly, but it's you're not interviewing just anybody. You're interviewing people that are like kind of heroes, people that you really admire, and so that puts a lot of pressure in itself. Yeah, and then to have to compose with all the different elements we mentioned, that's a lot of stress. That
was funny when Scott Johnston talked about the interview, and he was like, it was like, I think he liked it, but he was like, it's really weird. Like you like show up and he tells you where to stand and he starts handing you all this stuff. And like, I was like, I guess it is kind of weird. Like,
but it's great. I mean, I love it. I hope you do a whole lot more. Yeah, these are so good. But I'm sure it's a lot of work. And as you said, it's a lot of planning. Since you have to do them in person, it's not like you can do them over Zoom calls like I do. You can't really show a board on a fucking camera or something. Right. It's not at all the same thing. So I hope you keep doing it because it's amazing. Yeah, they're really cool interviews.
Yeah, I'm in a lull right now, but I mean, in my head, I'm like, if Rob Welsh called tomorrow, I'd be like, hell yeah, I'm there. You know what I mean? But, sure. But they're fun. And like, it helps the Deckaid shows. Like when I got to do Castrucci and Mr. Dibbs is the guy that did the music for the Habitat section right before the Ohio Deckaid show. I was like, man, this is really cool. Like, this is like a cool thing we're doing. So like that stuff, I'm like, this is fun. Yeah. But and
it makes so much sense, as you said, like doing it in Ohio and these guys being so central to that scene and those brands.
Yeah. And like that one, like Mr. Dibbs, I was like, I had no idea what to expect from that guy. You know what I mean? And he's like, all right, that was a fun one. Yeah. That was fun. And that was like the first one I shot inside, I think, because he wanted to do it in the record shop or whatever. But it was like, but it's like, you can't plan everything. Because I was like, well, do it outside. He was like, nah, we're going to do it down here.
You have to go with the flow, kind of.
You gotta go with the flow. So.
And so actually, I was wondering how many interviews you had done. And so on your YouTube page, I saw that there are 35 different videos.
Is that right?
I think so. At least that's what I saw yesterday.
Okay.
So Gino was twice because we said like there was the first time and then another time. But and I was like, oh, there's only 35 because I feel like there's been like so many. I mean, 30, not to say that it's not good, but I feel like it's not enough or something. But I felt like there were a lot more. But I was like, oh wow, so that means like there's potential for so much more. Like
yeah.
But yeah, so like, do you know if all of your interviews are on there on the YouTube page? And then my other question would be like, who's kind of on your bucket list? Because there's a million other skaters that you could do interviews with, but who's like on top of your list maybe?
Right. I think they're all on there. Anthony's was taken down for like a year and a half, and I didn't even know it. Like, and somebody emailed me like, "Hey, what happened to Anthony's interview?" I was like, "I don't know. It's on the YouTube thing." But I guess they took it down because of a song, and I fought the copyright thing, and they let it go. Okay. So, but I think they're all on there. Bucket list, like Rob Welsh. I would like to do Stevie, like early Stevie. Chico would be cool. Kareem Campbell I think, there's a lot of guys, but I don't know. It's like, I also have to have the stuff to back up the interview. So it's a little tricky, right? I'm kind of like running through my stuff and, but,
I was wondering who you hadn't had that I would love to see Bobshirt interviews of, and you mentioned Kareem. Nadas would be awesome. Heath Kirchard, Ricky Oyola, Sean Sheffy.
Ricky Oyola, I almost got Ricky.
Oh yeah?
But he said no. I met him once at we did a Deckaid show in Philly, and he showed up, and I was like, oh, that's sick. So, I went over to offer him a drink. Yeah. I was like, hey, do you want a drink? He's like, yeah, sure. And I was like, can I get her a drink? And he's like, dude, that's my 15-year-old daughter. What the fuck? I was like, oh, shit, sorry.
Oh, no.
Because I was like, I was like, oh, it's Ricky,
Yeah, you wanted to be nice and, damn.
Yeah.
That sucks. Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, he said no, but, who knows? Who knows what'll happen?
Yeah, hopefully
that was a long time ago, so.
Okay, yeah. Well, Ricky, if you're listening to this, please get on the Bobshirt interview. One question I had also was, I asked Eric the same thing, but I don't want to ask you who was your favorite, because that's like kind of a stupid question, I guess. Like there's no favorites and whatever, but who's someone maybe that you've interviewed that really surprised you, that you had maybe a preconceived idea of who that person was, and he turned out to be quite different as you were talking, like listening to him and engaging in this conversation with him? Who is somebody that really surprised you?
I just mentioned Mr. Dibbs. He surprised me a lot. Super smart. And it was nice to just hear somebody that was totally out of skateboarding but had such a connection to skateboarding. Yeah. And just see his whole take on it, Like, he thought he did all the music for photosynthesis when he was talking.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't correct him, but I was like, yeah. I remember I interviewed this guy, Jimmy Chung from Philly. And he was I was a huge fan of him. And just getting to hear his whole story about childhood and how he got to the States as a refugee and everything like that was pretty amazing. Everybody, I gotta say, everybody's been pretty cool. Some people have had me edit a few things, but, and I feel like Wenning was a curveball. I was like, man, I didn't know which Wenning I was going to get. Yeah. But I got him. He was in a good window. You know what I mean? So I was grateful for that. Yeah. Nothing against Wenning, but it's
no, of course. Yeah. What about Fred Gall? Because I think he was not sober yet, right? When you met him.
He was not sober, but he was great. He was
it turned out great.
I did that with Chris Davis from Jersey, and he was like, "Yeah, we should." I had no idea, but we were going to meet him. Mm-hmm. He's like, "Yeah, we'll get him some beer." I was like, "Yeah, we should get him beer." He's like, "Oh yeah, definitely." And we showed up to his house, and it was a given. He was like, "Oh, okay, good. There's the beer." You know what I mean? And thank God for Chris Davis, because I wouldn't even thought. You know what I mean? And yeah. He's just sitting there drinking it, and Fred, he was a sweetheart. He's a good guy.
You mentioned earlier that you, for example, the Ricky Oyola thing, were there any kind of missed opportunities? Maybe not quite like that, but more as in planning. For example, someone told you I don't know, Stevie Williams is going to be in New York on that day, hit him up or something, and you almost got him, but it didn't work out in the end. Were there the kind of missed opportunities like that come to mind?
I want to say 4 years ago, Mike Carroll was in town. He was in New York City, and I saw it on social media, so I hit up somebody. I think I hit up Meza. Uh-huh. I was like, oh, will he do an interview? And he's like, yeah, probably. Let me check,
Okay.
And I was like, fuck, like, this is amazing, you know? That's Mike Carroll. And he wrote back, he's like, oh, he's doing something with stashed laces because he's got a new shoe coming out and he only wants to do one thing. So I was like, all right, that's fine. Okay. You know? But, you reach out to so many people and so many people just don't write back or something like that. Or, But, like, I tried to get Jake Johnson. Like a year ago.
Well, he just did one with Eric, so maybe it's a good time to get him. Yeah.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, he was just like it's too. He just wasn't into it, and I was like, that's fine. Like I met him in Ohio, awesome dude, like so nice, you know.
Yeah.
So I hit up Chad. I was like, you think Jake would want to do one? And he was like, I don't know, try him. He gave me his number, and Jake was like, I don't know, I'm just not ready to like talk about all that stuff. And like after reading Eric's interview, I was like, man, it's a good thing he didn't do my interview because Eric went like so deep on it, you know.
Oh,
and
okay.
Mine would have been like,
but yeah.
It's so good. Yeah, it's really good. It's like
I'm waiting for it, but it takes a while to get all the way here. So yeah,
to get the magazine. Yeah. So I would have talked about a couple video parts and a couple board graphics. It would have been a squandered opportunity. I'll leave it at that. So it would have been like a minefield thing, and that's it. So
yeah. Oh, I mean, I would have still enjoyed it, but yeah.
Yeah, but sometimes people say no, and it works out. So it's like I've had a couple where they're like, no, I can't do it. Like the Mike Carroll thing. I'm glad it didn't work out because I got to do him with Rick 4 years later or something like that together. You know what I mean? I don't even know if it was on Mike's radar. Maybe they didn't even ask him. Maybe they're like, there's no time. But it's like, oh, well, I was bummed then, but in the long run, it actually worked out better. So, Yeah, that must have been a pretty special moment, that interview with Eric at Crailtap with Rick and Mike. Doesn't get much better than that. That's like the best. Yeah. So we did, Eric and I did Andy Jenkins together.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Oh, you didn't do Rick and Mike together? I thought you had.
No, that was a separate trip. We did that like months earlier. So,
okay. I thought it was all at the same. Okay.
I wish Eric was there for that one. We would have had some better questions for sure.
Oh no! So you and Eric was for Andy Jenkins. Okay, I got it all mixed up. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No, the girl one was great. Yeah, for the 30-year-old celebration thing. Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah, that was wild.
So one question I wanted to ask you, this is kind of random, but I talked with Aaron Meza. I interviewed Aaron a while back, like maybe 6 months ago or something.
That was a good one. I liked it. I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. He was also a great guest, like full of great stories and stuff.
I know.
That was really
He's so
fun.
well spoken too. I'm like, man, this guy is so smart. Jeez.
He is. He really is. Yeah, absolutely. And so he told me about him like participating on the set of mid-90s.
Yeah.
With Jonah Hill and stuff, who kind of had him come in as a consultant or something like that to kind of make sure the skate knowledge was on point, like the clothes, the boards, like all the culture was respected, so to speak.
Right.
And I remember him telling me that he called you a couple times to check on some things, like a Menace beanie or a T-shirt or a board. And so, could you tell me just about maybe like talking with him about those different items during the filming, and also what were your thoughts afterwards when the film came out and when you watched it?
So, he messaged me out of nowhere like, hey, can you talk about something that we got coming up? I was like, yeah, of course. So on my lunch break, I called him. And he's like, yeah, we're doing this movie. It's all about the 90s. Basically, he called me because he was like, we need wardrobe and there's a skate shop scene, so we need boards. So he's like, we need to figure out what boards were correct era for 1995.
95, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, well, I can send you images, just make fake boards for like one-offs for like $50 a pop. Okay. And but they actually wanted to rent some of my boards. So I was like, all right. Yeah, so they rented, I want to say like 20 boards for the skate shop scene. And then I gave them like some Menace clothes and stuff like that for the actors to wear. And I feel like Aaron, like I'm such an outsider, and something about Aaron, he always is like looked at, like I don't want to say looked out for me, but he's always like, I've been on his radar, and I don't know why, but he's always like, I guess looked out for me, or like he's like, oh, we'll get this guy in the mix a little bit. You know what I mean? Like he's just such a nice person, right?
He is, yeah. Sure.
And so I think he was like, oh, Tim might be kind of into this. You know what I mean? So he like kind of got me in the mix and got a little money from the board rentals, which was nice.
Yeah. Where did they shoot? I guess it wasn't in New York. It was in California, maybe, or?
Yeah, it was in California.
Yeah.
So I shipped all the decks and, you know, it was like all this paperwork and stuff like that. And I had, you know, replacement costs and all that stuff. But, and then, a bunch of like I had Menace clothes that they wore in the movie, some Menace jeans. And then after the movie wrapped, the wardrobe stylist,
Jerry Sue's wife, right? I think.
Is that who it was? I don't know.
I think. Aaron mentioned that his wife was working on the set on some costumes. I don't know if she was the person you're referring to, but yeah.
Yeah. Like they sent the clothes back, but then they sent all this other shit too. Like all this other stuff they wore in the movie. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. You know?
Yeah. Good surprise. Yeah.
Yeah, good surprise. Like, oh, that's kind of cool. As for the movie, I don't think I watched it all the way through. I did I did want to see the skate shop scene, and I thought it looked pretty good. Yeah. You know, I saw a lot of girl boards in there. Yeah, I looked at some of the wardrobe, you know, the style of it and stuff like that, and what some of the guys wore, and I thought it was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. The like camera legit, they were using.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I was like,
good
enough. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, the movie. I don't think the movie was made for me.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
But I think they did a good job. I think it was well received, from what I know. You know.
Yeah, and at least from my perspective, I think it's cool that Jonah wanted to do a good job at portraying skateboarding in the 90s and not butcher it, you know, kind of. It seems like he wanted to, give justice to that whole time period and everything. So.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he did a good job by hiring Aaron for that. Yes. Because if like somebody random was like, hey, we want to rent 15 boards or 20 boards for a skate shop scene for a movie, I'd be like, well,
just take those Dark Star boards from Toys R Us or something.
Yeah, like he was like the necessary bridge to make sure all the little bits and pieces were legitimate, I guess. Yeah.
So before we start doing the friends questions, I just wanted to ask you a little bit about we mentioned it a few times during our conversation, but the Girl 30-year anniversary, which just happened a couple months ago.
Yeah.
That looked like a pretty epic, but I'm sure it must have been a lot of work on your end, organizing the whole thing with Deckaid and your wife and everything.
Yeah.
And so tell me about, like, when did they maybe approach you to start working on this and just getting involved in that process? That must have been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can tell you exactly when they reached out. Sam Smith reached out August of 2022. And he was like, yeah, girl's turning 30. We wanted, maybe do some interviews to like highlight it,
Yep.
I was like, yeah, definitely. And then like we had just come off this Ohio Deckaid show where Alien Workshop, they weren't that involved in it, but they were heavily shown. Yeah. And like Mike Hill did give us some great stuff, some great ephemera, but Alien Workshop was not like the company itself didn't like endow it or anything like that. We were just, it's Ohio. So obviously we're going to do workshop, So Sam was like, and what's up with like the Deckaid shows, Mm-hmm. I was like, we just did one and we're doing one in Albany, New York with Seasons. Shout out Trevor and CB and Seasons Skate Shop. And we only do one a year, so I don't think we could do another one, Okay. And he was like, yeah, I get it. But I was like, yeah, but maybe we can arrange some interviews or something like that. He was like, all right, let's talk. That was August 2022. I get off the phone and Sarah was like, yeah, so what's that all about? I was like, they want to maybe like do a couple interviews to highlight 3 decades of Girl. And then they asked about like doing like a Deckaid show with them, but just pulling from their archives. But I said no, because we got the Seasons one. And she was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
She's like, why? She's like, you got to call them back and just say we're interested and we should do that. I was like, really? Yeah. She's like, yeah, obviously. I was like, yeah, okay. Like, I'm always like trying to protect our free time too. You know what I mean? Like because I was like, great, we'll do a couple interviews. And I was like, I want to, I just had a dream list of like Rick and Mike. And, of course, Rick was like, no, I'm not doing that. But we'll get to that. So I call Sam and I was like, well, maybe we could do, we could do like a 3 decades of Girl thing and just pull from your archives and just work with Deckaid. And they like the idea of like getting Deckaid involved because they you know, it's like you do like a 30-year show. It's kind of like you're bragging about yourself, right? And they were like, I know some of them over there didn't even want to do it, you know. I don't know. I'm not going to name names, but they were just like, I don't know. It's just too much, you know. Like, we don't want to, like, it's like a big brag fest, right? And it's like, that's not a good look. So,
yeah,
I mean, I don't personally see it like that. I'm like,
no, me neither.
It's
but
30 years. Yeah, but, so Sarah had me call Sam back, and I was like, all right, yeah, maybe we could work something out for the 3 Decades a Girl. And it took about a year to all fall into place. So yeah, we took 3 trips out, shot interviews on all 3 trips.
So who were the interviews? So you said obviously Rick and Mike, Tony was in there as well?
Rick and Mike, Tony Ferguson, Rudy Johnson, and Andy
Jenkins. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Were there any other ones that were maybe going to happen and that didn't happen? Like,
yeah, I tried to get I was just aiming high. I was like, I want to do Megan and Spike at the same time.
Oh, you know? Wow.
Yeah, and I think that almost happened, but maybe it was never going to happen. You know, like they were like, yeah, maybe that could work, you know, but
that would be incredible.
It's hard.
Yes.
You know, I don't blame them sitting in front of a camera. You know, it's like, but I did. Actually, it was one trip I did Rudy Johnson one day. No, I did Tony Ferguson one day, Rudy Johnson the next day, and then I think 2 days later I did Mike and Rick. So I did like 3 interviews in 4 days, and my head was spinning. You know, I was just like all of them were dream interviews. Like I had been trying to get Tony Ferguson for years, you know, but like we just kept missing each other. Like I was in Vancouver the year before, and I was like, maybe we can meet up in Vancouver. And like he was out of town. We like missed each other by days. So like I like did like 3 or 4 of my dream interviews in 4 days.
Yeah,
and my head was
like,
I was like,
yeah.
I was sweating, man.
Oh, sure,
yeah.
Not sleeping at night super well, I'm sure, between interviews.
And I had to figure out 2 microphones for Mike and Rick, and I had never done that, I had to do a new audio system.
And I remember, like, time. Sorry to cut you off, but was that the first time you did 2 people in an interview?
It was, yeah. Well, no, I had Bill.
Oh, yeah.
Bill Strobeck and Bill, but Bill was just kind of like there, and he was close enough to Dill. You know what I mean? Right. He was like a little bit of an accessory, I guess.
He was more focused on Dill. Like Rick and Mike was Rick and Mike. Yeah.
Yeah. Like for the Dill one, I was just like, hey, Bill, get in there.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? So, and I remember like it was like an hour before we were going to shoot Mike and Rick, and it was like after we were visiting a gallery for the show. It was just like tacked on, you know, and so we were going to visit a gallery, so I had to like test the sound, and like the microphones weren't working, everything was squeaking, and we had to leave in like 10 minutes, and I was like freaking out. I was like, oh my God, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm going to blow this. But, you know, I figured it out, and then, you know.
Yeah, it worked out great. I mean, yeah, that's hectic though. Like those 4 guys in 4 days, that's,
Yeah.
Not a small task, yeah.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
You know, they talked about Jerron, which I thought it would have been super fun, but like he's also on the 9 Club every week, so I was like, I don't like. It was just if I had time, I would have done more, but it was just like also on the back end, like editing these things takes a really long time.
Yeah.
Andy's was edited like I finished editing that like 10 days before the show, basically. You know what I mean? So so it kind of got stacked up on the back end because you know you're going for reference videos and all this stuff and
yeah, definitely. Does it take you usually? That's kind of a side question, but does it take you a long time to edit these pieces? Like, I mean, of course, it depends of the length of how much footage you have and stuff. But for example, let's say like the Rick and Mike one, which was pretty long. I think it was nearly an hour, wasn't it, or maybe 45 minutes or something? I'm not sure.
That was almost 3 hours of footage cut down to an hour. So I get really like at first I would just kind of let interviews go, but like people's attention spans, especially with video, their attention spans are short. So I like there's so many jump cuts in there. I cut out every I cut out like I never like leave the guy on the screen thinking anymore. You know, like I cut it. I make it as compact as I can.
Yes.
So the editing takes a really long time, and then throwing 2 people in there, you know, you have people talking over each other.
Yeah.
And you know, I just want to keep the flow of the interview moving as quickly as possible. So it takes a while.
So, like, for example, you said you had 3 hours of recording with Rick and Mike. So even after squeezing it all, kind of removing all the pauses and stuff, and that must bring it back to maybe closer to 2 hours or around there. I'm not sure. But like, so did you eventually had to cut out whole parts that you felt were not as relevant and stuff, or?
Sometimes I do cut out whole parts where I'm just like, I mean, I like it, but it doesn't add to things really. Okay. If that makes sense, you know what I mean? Like, like Sarah is also the final editor of these interviews. Like, I show her. She's the only one I think she's the only one that sees them really before they go up, unless like Eric saw the Andy one, and the people that I interview see them before they go up in case they want to change anything.
Sure, yeah.
But sometimes she'll be like, that doesn't need to be in there. Like, I see why you want it in there, but it's like it only pertains to like you kind of thing. You know what I mean? Okay. She's like, yeah, that was cool because you were there on that day, but it's like I'm like, yeah, you're right. So
like most people won't necessarily care about that specific story, or
right? Yeah. Okay. I find it's better to take out. I don't know. It's hard because I always tell the guys like more is better. Like the more details you can give me, the better. And then I end up like cutting it way down too. You know what I mean? Sure. So it's like sometimes you cut something out, you're like, it's a decent bit, but it's like it doesn't add to the overall story. So I'm just going to take it all out. You know what I mean? So that was one thing I learned with video editing of interviews. You can't be scared to just cut things out.
Yeah. Otherwise, you end up with something that's way too long and kind of
And it's like it's the interviews I do. You kind of have to watch them, and
for sure,
it can't be background noise. So people lose interest easily if they kind of like go on without something else happening on the screen or something. Yeah.
But I feel like there's like, for example, a few years ago, the Nine Club did an interview with Mike Vallely, and that one was I think over 5 hours.
Yeah.
And so at first I was like, wow, that's way too long. Come on, seriously,
right.
What the fuck. But I ended up watching it. I think I pretty much watched it the whole thing in one go. Right. And I was surprised. I was like, but I mean, Mike V is such a great storyteller, and it's like so captivating and stuff.
Yeah.
But and not necessarily everybody could pull it off. Like, I don't know if I wanted to listen to anybody's talk for 5 hours.
Right.
But my point is just that sometimes stuff that you feel are going to be too long end up just being, you even want more, And I feel like if you release an interview that was 3 hours, like I would definitely watch it, like for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, 3 hours would mean that it would actually have lasted maybe 6 or something. So that would be an insane amount of work for you.
Yeah, the Mike V one. I mean, it kind of, if it wasn't 5 hours, it would be weird, kind of thing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like it
makes
sense. It's like a Mike V interview on the Nine Club that's 5 hours. It kind of makes sense. In a weird way. Yeah. So
that's also something I struggle with sometimes. Like I just mentioned, I did one with Tobin.
Yeah.
It will probably come out before this one. And we talked so he told me he had 2 hours. And so I was okay, like that sounds good, like we'll make it work. But then I ended up just focusing on the friends questions. And at the end now I have, the whole thing is 1 hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That's it. It's not very long. And I'm like, damn, that's Tobin Yellen. I mean, that's a legendary photographer. Right. 1 hour and 10 minutes doesn't even scratch the surface of what this guy has done in skateboarding, but so I was a little bummed, about like, do I want to put out something that's so short? But then I listened to it and I'm like, oh, there's actually some cool stories and some questions from people that are fun and stuff. And I mean, I try to set the bar high and try to do a good job, but sometimes it's not exactly what I expected or hoped for or something. And you just have to go with it. And but yeah, anyways, so that's a bit tough. Like for people that are so legendary, of course you want to have a very long interview, but you also can't ask them to take 6 hours out of their day or something to chat with you. Like that's even just 2 hours or 3 hours is quite a lot in itself. So
I think I did. Josh Kalis was like 2.5 hours of filming, I think.
Okay.
And like I remember after we finished, she's like, "Fuck, my legs hurt, man." Just standing. You know what I mean? I'm like, sorry.
He's not walking, so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to take up the time. But on the other end, there's some interviews that I did. Like usually I edit these interviews and I'll watch them once through. Like once they're up on YouTube, I'll watch it once through to make sure there's nothing wrong. And then that's it, because like you have just spent weeks and weeks poring over this thing, right? So you're just like done with it. So
yeah, exactly.
I don't remember like all of the interviews, to be honest. Like somebody was like, "Oh, like they'll like mention something in the interview." I was like, "I don't remember that."
Yeah.
Like,
no, me too.
How could you not? But it's like, well, I was like so in it for a month. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then it's like, all right, next kind of thing.
Exactly.
But some of the ones I go back to, some of the old ones I go back to, I'm like, man, I really blew it. Like I didn't ask enough. You know what I mean? So there's always that. So.
But I mean, again, at the beginning, it's different because you were getting started and you didn't feel comfortable enough to ask them as many questions as you wanted. You didn't want to take too much of their time and stuff. Right. So probably you were like, oh, like, I'll just focus on these questions and that's it. And kind of just go away after that or something.
Yeah, and I've kind of moved away from like career spanning too, because it's like I just kind of do what I'm like the era that I'm interested in, and then that's it, kind of. You know what I mean? Because it honestly sometimes it feels forced if like I'm not an expert or not even an expert on the subject, but I don't have full knowledge of what I'm asking them about. I'm just like, this doesn't feel right to me, so I'm gonna keep asking people about 101 videos and stuff like that. You know?
Yeah. The things you're like super knowledgeable about. Yes, for sure.
I mean, some people like Eric has knowledge about somebody's entire career, right? Like I honestly don't, right? So it's like, and so I just kind of stick with what I know. And to my own fault sometimes, but that's like people like sometimes like an interview will end and I'll see people like, what the fuck, you didn't ask about X, Y, and Z, you know, or something like that. I'm like,
that's always going to happen. I mean, you can't, like again, these guys are such legendary skaters. Like you can't ask everything. It's impossible.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So as we were talking about the Girl 30-year anniversary, next year Chocolate is turning 30 years old. So I was wondering, are you going to be involved in that? And if so, are you looking forward to it? Because I'm sure like the Girl 30-year must have been as much fun as it must have been. It must have been also a lot of work, a lot of stress. So I'm sure you must have been happy when it was done and kind of behind you as well. So what are your thoughts on the Chocolate 30-year anniversary?
So with the Girl 30-year anniversary, I remember they were like, oh, you should come out. You got to pick all the boards that you want to display for the show. And I was like, all right, cool. Like, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. And that was actually 2 trips. The first trip was just the first decade. And then the last trip was the end of the first decade and the second and third decade that we pulled boards from. And I remember getting there and when I got there, I thought I was going to be pulling boards with Andy Jenkins, the art director.
Yep.
Because I was like, oh, Andy and I will go through the boards. It'll be like a collaborative effort. Like, this will be fun. Mm-hmm. And so I get to the warehouse that first day, and it's just Rick. And I'm like, is Andy coming? He's like, I don't know. He might be working remote today. Oh. And then I was like, oh, okay, cool. And he's like, all right, you want to start? I was like, we're going to do this together? He's like, yeah, we're going to do it together. And so I spent 5 days with Rick just pulling every single board out of the Girl archives. Wow. And I was just like, this is fucking crazy.
That's incredible.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it was like, that was the coolest part. Like, he was super into it. You know, he's super into the history of it.
Yeah.
So that was really special.
Was that before or after you had done the interview with him and Mike?
That was after.
After, okay.
Yeah. So before the first trip was all the interviews except for Andy. And then, the second trip
for the boards and everything.
Yeah, the boards and everything. And that's like when I shot the Andy interview, you can see all the boards in the background. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I like kind of tricked Eric into coming to the Andy Jenkins interview. But yeah, but that was awesome getting Eric involved and just having him there with because we were at the warehouse and I was like, hey, like I might shoot a thing with Andy if you want to come down and just say hi, because we had never met in person, you know.
With Eric?
So,
okay. Yeah, not yet. Okay.
So he gets there. I'm kind of jumping back here, but
it's all good.
He gets there, and I was like, "Yeah, we're gonna shoot this interview." And Eric tried to not be involved in it. He's like, "All right, cool. I'm gonna be over here." I was like, "No, man, you're part of this." He's like, "No, I don't want to step on your toes." It's like, I brought you here to make it so we actually have good questions this time.
Sure. Yeah.
So that was really special. That was fun. But as I was going through all those boards with Rick for Girl, which was like, that was just such a trip for me. Like pulling every single Girl board out with
Rick Howard. I mean,
but you also have to be like, yeah, this one sucks to Rick. You know what I mean? It's like, it got a little awkward, but he's like the nicest person in the world. But I remember like pulling all the boards and we'd see the chocolate boxes too. And I'd be like, oh, I really want to go through the chocolate boxes. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But there was no time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he was like, maybe for the 30-year chocolate, who knows? You know, so as far as Deckaid being involved in the 30 years of chocolate, that's Sarah coordinates all that stuff. So
okay.
I know they've been talking, but I don't know what's happening yet. So, yeah. I mean, obviously, I would love it. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I would love it. I thought it was a fun, positive relationship between Deckaid and Girl. So we'll see what happens. You know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
I definitely have more brand expertise with chocolate than Girl. You know.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I love Girl.
Yeah, of course.
Girl is Girl, but like something about chocolate, I was a huge fan. So.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And all the art. So yeah.
Okay, to be continued. Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see.
See what 2024 brings. Yeah.
So what kind of projects do you have in the works right now? Or do you have any like maybe Bobshirt interviews that are coming somewhat soon or like planned to be recorded or other stuff around skating? Or nothing on your plate right now?
No, I'm at a lull right now.
It's good to take breaks as well.
Yeah, it's good to take breaks. Yeah, I got a couple interviews I would do, but like Deckaid keeps talking about doing like a big New York City show, like a bigger, grander scale one. And so like there's a couple New York City guys that I have on my radar, but we got to see what happens with the chocolate show. Cause like I only like to do one a year, you know, cause it's very time consuming, but,
sure.
Yeah, so nothing. I like to tie it to Deckaid, whatever we're doing. You know, just to do a random interview is like, it doesn't keep going, I guess. Mm-hmm. You know, so it's just kind of like you do an interview, then it's over, right? So it's kind of like, I like to just try to keep it going and have it connected to something else.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So right now, no.
Okay. But maybe in the next few months or the year to come, some projects
who knows?
Yeah, okay.
Spring or something like that when it gets warm out. We do shoot them outside and it's getting cold out there. So.
Yeah. Yeah, you never shot any interviews during the winter, like with snow and stuff? I don't think so, no.
No, not really. I've done them like late fall or early spring, and like the guys are like cold. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't think you get the best when somebody's cold like that. You don't get the best interview.
Well, yeah, they want to rush through the answers and kind of get it over with. Yeah.
Yeah, like Chris Davis and I were going to do Carrie Getz at Love Park before it got torn down, and it was freezing. And like we were about to do it, and it just didn't work out. I'm like, it might be for the better. Like it was like 10 degrees out. The camera probably wouldn't have worked, and you know, it's just like
I see. Okay.
So.
Oh, by the way, I forgot to ask you about this earlier, but we mentioned the Tony Ferguson interview where the cop kind of kicked you out of the Jaquan Plaza thing.
Yeah.
Do you have maybe another memory of something kind of random like that happened during filming one of these interviews? Like something totally unexpected, someone showing up or like something happening nearby or...
Yeah, for the Reto one, we filmed that in Manhattan downtown by the TF, and somebody got robbed like 15 feet away from us. It was like super sketchy. Like a little like tussle broke out. Somebody got robbed, and Reto and I were just like, "What the fuck?" He's like, "Yo, that guy just got robbed," you know, and it's like that's happened. And then I remember for the Bill Strobeck interview.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen Anthony in a while, but I was like, "Hey, Anthony, I'm going to interview Bill."
Oh, that's right. Maybe he showed up. Yeah, I remember.
Maybe you want to come by. And it was super random. It was like the day before I texted him, and like Bill was actually talking about Anthony.
Oh,
and Anthony like skates down the street, and I was like, and Bill was like, "Did you plan that?" I was like, "Not really." Like I asked him if he wanted to come, but like that timing was weird. Like you were just talking about the guy. So like little weird things like that have happened, but. We've gotten kicked out, like for the Fred Gall thing, we got kicked out of the train yard.
Oh, yeah.
Like we get kicked out, you know, it happens.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're usually doing it, you know, sometimes you're doing it on private property.
Yeah.
Or like a skate spot or something like that. But that's all I can think of right now.
So I usually wrap up with this kind of cheesy question about like the most valuable lesson that you learned from skating. But I think it's still an interesting one because it can provide some interesting answers and just thoughts about skating and everything that goes around it. Is there something that comes to mind as a very valuable lesson that you've learned, not just through the act of skating, but through everything you've been doing around it, like all the interviews, the Deckaid shows? Is there something that kind of sticks out as a valuable life lesson?
I feel like somebody else said this before in one of your interviews, but it was like, whatever you're doing, somebody's done it before. And that's like the mindset I try to be in. Like somebody's probably already asked these questions, or like, it's like kind of like I don't want to say
be humble.
Yeah. Be humble. And it's like, it's just skateboarding, dude.
Yeah.
Like it's not, you know what I mean? It's like, just have fun with it. And like,
it's not that serious.
It's not that serious, yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's something like that. Like, and for me to say that, I'm like a ball of stress when it comes to this stuff, and it's supposed to be my like side fun project, and and sometimes I get so much anxiety over it. But long term, it's all happiness. You know what I mean? But in the moment, I get anxious. Yeah.
But that's because you care. You care for skating. It's your whole life. So yeah.
Right, and you're interviewing a certain person. You're like, man, like these stakes are like. You start with your friends and the people you know, and then all of a sudden you're like interviewing Rick and Mike, and you're like, I hope I don't blow it. Right? Yeah, oh, this isn't fun. This is nerve wracking. All of a sudden, but be humble. That's it.
All right, so how about we do these friends questions? So I have a first one from Megan Baltimore.
Oh, jeez.
But it's not much of a question. It's more just a shout out. And she just said, Tim is such a great guy. Tell him I thought he had a great eye for heaters. That's what, that's what he would call any rare deck that we unearthed when we were coordinating the 3 Decades show. Can you tell us about that with the word heaters?
I mean, I just said that they had me pick out 30 boards to auction off for Deckaid,
right.
And that was so fun. And I guess I just said that. I was like, I want to pick some heaters, and that's not a word I use often, but I guess I'm marked with it. But yeah, like getting to know Megan and Rick and Mike, like they're all so nice. Like they're such nice people.
Did Spike show up at the 30-year-old girl thing?
No, I think he had. No, he didn't show up. He was going to, but something came up. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not gonna.
You haven't crossed paths with him yet?
No. Maybe I'll shoot the Megan and Spike interview next year. No,
that would be incredible. Oh yeah, please.
No. Megan's off the hook.
You heard it here first.
Mark that one. No. Yeah, but they're awesome people. They're super cool.
They seem really cool. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Spike is a dream guest for me. Like I would.
I
would kill to interview him. Yeah, but I mean, he's a whole different league because he's become like the famous director and stuff. Like he's gone so far above skating that it's. I don't know if it will ever happen, but we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, like when I was trying to get Megan and Spike, and I was like, yeah, that'd be cool. And then I started getting super nervous, and then I think Megan was like, yeah, I don't think it's going to work out. And I was like, phew, thank God.
yeah. I can relate to that, yeah. But yeah, we'll see. Maybe next year. I'll see.
Nah.
Okay, the next one is from Christian Corso. I believe he's an old friend of yours from New York, right? From the early days of New York.
Yeah.
So he said, tell us the story when you hurt your ankle at Crooked Benches downtown and Keenan helped you. I wasn't there, but any Keenan story is good.
Well, I think I touched on that story earlier in the day. I mean, it's not much happened. I was lying in vomit and he helped me up. But
it was that time. Okay.
Yeah, same time. I thought Chris was there, but I guess not. Maybe he was playing baseball or something. Who knows?
Okay. I didn't put it together when you told about this earlier. I didn't remember this question from Christian. Okay.
Yeah, Chris was so good at skateboarding, still is, but like he was like the local kid that was like.
Was he also in the Special Sauce videos? I'm not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, last part.
I'll go check it out. Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah.
He also asked a couple other funny random questions. He said, Reese's Pieces or cups?
I'm going cups. Yeah.
Okay, and then Mullen or Howard or Lottie?
Oh. I'll go Howard. Yeah.
Okay.
Chris was actually in Transworld IE video in Anthony's part.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he had like a little guest trick.
Okay.
Yeah, shout out Corso. And Mookie Wilson is his, some famous baseball player is his godfather. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, yeah.
All right, next one is from Aaron Meza. So, he said, a lot of times our favorite skaters miss out on being in great videos because they left the team just a little too early. For example, imagine if Javante stayed on blind and ended up having a part in Video Days. That being said, what is a part from a favorite skater that if you could rewrite history would have made it into one of your favorite videos?
My God, this is impossible. I don't even know.
It's a good question, though. It's a funny one.
That's a really good question. I would have, you know what, if Keenan didn't go to Chocolate, like what would have a Keenan Milton part in Trilogy been like?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that could have been, because we all know like in the Paco video, it was like a whole different vibe. But like what would have a final Keenan part in Trilogy looked like compared to Paco?
Yeah. Interesting.
Like the editing style and maybe even the tricks and the song choice.
It would have been completely different for sure.
Yeah, completely. So I'll go with that. But impossible question. But
yeah.
There you go.
he tends to come up with some kind of mind-bending questions. Yeah.
And he's on a different. He's like super smart.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one is from your wife Sarah.
Uh-oh.
So she asked 3 things. So the first question is, choose one. A lifetime supply of very fresh Reese's peanut butter cups. Or the Keenan Blind Art by Sean Cliver.
I'll go with the Keenan Blind Art from Sean Cliver.
Okay.
Yeah, tough call.
Yeah, it is. I'm sure. Back in 2005-ish, when you took over our entire closet in Brooklyn and filled it with skateboards, did you think you were going to get away with it? Did you know how out of hand it would get?
No, I didn't think I would get away with it, but I tried to hide them as best I could. And like a new one would come in and I'd like kind of do like white lies and be like, yeah, I got it in a trade or something like that. You know, like, so like one went out and one came in, but that's not always true. Yeah, it got out of hand, but then it like cold stopped. You know what I mean? But still, it's a little weird. Still, it's a little weird.
Okay, and her last question is: if you could only keep one board, because of course I need more closet space, which would it be?
Man, I'm going with two. I'm gonna go the James Kelch Real Flyer deck, and then probably the Keenan Blind Kid in the Dump by Sean Kleiber. So. Mm-hmm. So that's it.
It's impossible. 2 boards.
Jeez.
Okay, I have a few audio ones. So I don't remember if all of these guys said their names. So if they don't, they'll try to guess who it is.
Okay. Oh boy.
Tim, all right, mate. Alex here from Muckmouth. My question for you is, in your next 360 flip, Switch 360 flip birthday celebration post, which I believe you'll be 46 next time, which board from your stash or the Deckaid stash would you most like to do it on? Obviously, you probably can't do any of this, but you got to choose a board, set it up, do the free flip, do the Switch free flip, then focus it. I don't know why I'm adding that in, just to make it weirder and more depressing. But would you choose a board you love because you want to do the free flip on it, or a board you don't love because you got to focus it? Anyway. Don't even understand the question myself, but look forward to hearing the answer. Cheers, mate. Have a good day.
Shout out Muckmouth. You know, I would have to pick it on shape because I probably couldn't do it on a lot of these shapes. So it'd have to be like a flat chocolate board or something like that. Yeah. I don't know. But I'm not focusing it when I'm done. That's ridiculous.
I liked that he added that. That was the fun.
That's evil.
A board you've been keeping for like decades and then you focus
it. Right. Jeez. Or like a mid-90s flat world board. That would be the easiest to do it on. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, next one is from Jamie Owens. So he asked, Tim, if you had to sell your entire collection tomorrow and could only keep 3 items, what would they be and why?
Oh my God.
Some of these questions are a bit kind of similar. I mean, you just mentioned like the 2 boards and stuff, but like, if you think of your whole collection, not just the boards, but like everything, if you had to keep 3 things.
So I'm going to go back to the Keenan blind deck, the Henry Sanchez Terminator package, the boards and the art. That's more than one thing, but I consider that a package deal. Yeah. And I don't know what the third would be. Yeah, probably my first board, or like Anthony's first board, or something like that. The turtle board, something like that, or probably the fish out of water Papalardo deck.
Oh yeah,
by Don Pell. So Alien, something like that, something personal. So
okay,
yeah.
Next one is not much of a question too, more of a funny shout out from Andy Jenkins. He said, hit him about fanning out on me in Brooklyn. Haha. That dude is the best. Real good egg.
So for the 20 Years of Chocolate show.
Oh, 20 years. So
20 years.
So 9 years ago. Okay.
Yeah. Meza hit me up for that, and I had a few pieces that they wanted to use for the shows. Again, like Meza just trying to get me in the loop a little bit. Something with Meza. Like he's always, I don't know, like he's a thoughtful person.
Sure.
So I had like some Keenan art with a board. So I actually brought it to the Brooklyn show that they were doing. So I got to meet Andy while they were setting up the show, and I got to like hang around, and it was a really cool experience to contribute to the show, but more to see them setting up the 20 Years of Chocolate show, which was like major inspiration for future Decade shows. So we're like kind of walking in the footsteps of that show a little bit. So
that was the early days of Decade as well, right? That was 2014, I guess.
It was like the same exact time. I think the 20 Years of Chocolate show happened, and we went to it, and we were like, wow, this is amazing. You know? And I think that kind of sparked Sarah, too, to be like, we could absolutely do this.
We can do something like that, yeah.
For free, so.
Okay, then I have a few questions from Andrew Morell from Overthinking Skate Videos.
Yeah.
So, his first question is, what was it like hosting your own site and curating all the videos you put up in the mid-2000s? And what was that process like?
Yeah, I had no idea what I was doing. So it was learning code. It was like figuring out how to upload QuickTime files and figuring out the right sizes. And just, it was fun picking all of my favorite parts and putting them on the internet before YouTube.
Yeah.
There was like YouTube, and then there was another thing called Putfile that came out. So those two came out probably like 2 years afterwards or something like that. But yeah, it was fun. It was like a weird way to connect to people. You'd hear from people via email, like, oh, I love this. And, you know, not early internet days, but like early skate video. I even like learned to put like comments under some of the videos, you know, like on the page, like really archaic web design. But yeah, that was fun.
It's funny, that's something I realized also while I was preparing for this interview, is that like Eric Swisher, you kind of came out through the internet doing something super DIY, like he was doing the scans, you were posting the videos at first, and then you both got into doing interviews. Somewhere around the same times, even though I think he started in 2011 doing Chromeball or around there, so it was a bit later than you, but...
But it, you know what? It gets like you keep like uploading other stuff, and you're like, I want to do something. Kind of, you know, you get inspired, and you also get a little bored of just like regurgitating other people's stuff. You know, you're like, maybe I want to try this.
I can contribute to this in a different way.
Like, I want to see what Ronnie Bertino's doing these days, or something like that. You know what I mean? So it's like, you just have a little more fun with it.
His next question is, how did you pick everything, and were you surprised it blew up the way it did?
I just picked what I loved, and I was surprised it picked up like it did. But then YouTube came out, and it was totally over, right? It was like, like I would see like the videos I uploaded were on YouTube, because you could see like little glitches. You know, you're like, oh, this is just like ripped off the site. And then it was kind of over. You're like, well, that's over. Yeah. And that was a lesson too about the internet. It's like the second you put something on the internet, it's world domain kind of, no longer, it's like, I mean, not that it was my property in the first place anyways. It was somebody else's video, but it's like, you're like, oh, I took the time to upload that. It's like, nobody cares. It's like, nobody cares. It's if it's on the internet, somebody's going to grab it and reuse it, and you got to be okay with that,
It looks sick though. I was looking at that Farron interview for Slam City. You had a screenshot of the website with all the like the videos. It looked pretty cool, like the collection of vignettes with like all the iconic video parts that you put online.
Yeah, I tried to put like little thumbnails that it wasn't super clear what it was you were going to click on, right? But it was like, if you knew, you knew.
Yeah,
kind of
exactly.
Thing. You know what I mean? It was just kind of like, my thought was like, well, people might explore a little more and watch something, that they normally wouldn't watch, but that's it.
Yeah, that's much better than YouTube. I mean, that's better curated, better, like the presentation is more appealing for a skateboarder.
Yeah, but thank God for YouTube, because where would we be without it, right? So,
for sure, yeah, that's true.
Well, not thank God for YouTube, but YouTube's a good thing.
Yes, thank you, YouTube.
Thank you, YouTube.
And his last question from Andrew is also, how does your wife put up with your collection?
My collection is like, it's kind of stuffed in a corner. So she's really cool. Like, she doesn't... sometimes I look around, I'm like, man, there's shit everywhere. And she's just like, she doesn't care. Like, she's really cool. Yeah. And like in the house, we only have a series... 2 series, like we have a chocolate series in the kitchen, and then a Western edition series in the living room, and like that's it for skateboarding. Like there's not, I could be wrong, but it's not like it doesn't like overflow into the house. Like it's stuffed in my closet, and then it's stuffed in the back room where I keep all the videos, and I try to cohabitate nicely, but she's a very patient person. Yeah.
It's not like, I don't know why, but this reminds me, I don't remember where I saw this, but there was this thing with Brandon Biebel's house in Sacramento, and there was like a wall of all his boards everywhere. Right. Oh, I think it's his parents' house actually, or something like that. I'm not sure. But anyways, I was thinking like, if that was in your house, maybe your wife would be bummed, like, it's getting out of hand. Like, I can't look anywhere without seeing a skateboard. Like,
we did have some iterations in our old house. Like, I was like, I want to put up every Keenan board. And we did it, and it stayed up for like a week or two. And then it was like, all right, this is too much, Yeah, so.
Let's see. This next one is an audio one.
Is this recording? I guess maybe does he have a funny story of like getting a pair of shoes or a deck, off eBay or the internet, and it showed up and it was just like a horrible fake, or someone tried to sell him just a terrible phony.
Did you recognize the voice?
No.
That was Blair Alley.
Oh, nice.
From Transworld.
What's up, Blair? I've been lucky. I haven't gotten any fake stuff that I know of. But you can tell, like, it's like the work you have to do to produce something fake is pretty vast. So to go through all that work to make one fake one, if there was like fakes, there would be like, they'd make 50 fake ones, right? So,
sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I've never gotten anything fake. I've gotten some stuff that's in worse condition than I thought it would be in, but I'm okay with that. It's skateboard stuff, so I'm not like a mint. Like, it doesn't have to be like mint. I'm like, if it's scuffed up, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I think you were saying that in the skate hoarders piece. Basically, like if the shoe kind of detaches or whatever, if there's a little scratch on the board, it happens. Like, it's super. You won't go crazy if there's a little something that's going wrong or something.
Sometimes if it's like too mint, people are like, "Is this fake?" Because it's so clean. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, but
exactly. All right, let's do the next one.
Tim, this is Kevin from the Look Back Library. I was hoping you could tell us about why Special Sauce was so special and elaborate a little bit on the importance of a local skateboard shop.
So Special Sauce was special by default. Like, the owner was actually kind of an asshole, but it was like, it's all we had kind of thing. So we made the best of it, and they gave us discounts because we were on the team. And
that was in Long Island or elsewhere in New York?
That was on Long Island, Bayshore, Long Island. Yeah.
Okay.
So, there was like a previous generation, like the first generation was this guy, Matt Bell, and like, Ed and Matt, or, Adam and stuff like that, who like skated for them, but they were like, I don't know. My friend Steve worked there, Chris Corso worked there, Paul worked there. It's just like, they kind of formed the team, and I would say the shop benefited from the team more than the team benefited from the shop. So again, the guy that owned it didn't skate, so that's a huge red flag.
Well, yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like,
it's hard.
We made a video. I mean, we made a video because we were always making videos, and and it just kind of worked out like that. But I mean, I don't regret any of it. But
sure,
yeah.
The management was not the best, most inspiring people. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. But, I mean, we just wanted a good, there was just no good skate shops. Like, that was the best skate shop out on Long Island, and then there was some shops in the city, but we didn't live in the city at the time. And especially back then, like, everybody just congregated at the skate shop.
Yeah, definitely.
That's where you saw the new videos and the new magazines, and I'm glad we had it. Could have been better, but it also could have been worse, right? So
yeah, that's true. What about today? Like, what do you think about skate shops in this era? Because of course, with internet and everything has changed. Do you feel like they're still? I mean, of course they're relevant, but like, is it different now with everything that's changed?
I think they're relevant. I think it depends where they are. Like, one of my favorite shops is Season Skate Shop up in Albany, and like, they're right in the city, and the two guys that run it, CB and Trevor, are like super tuned in, and they're smart and funny, and they make people feel welcome, and I think that's very important for adding and contributing. If you have a shop that doesn't want to add to your own scene, then it's a dead end, So exactly, I think they're I think they're really important. Out here where I live now, there's not really any shops. There's one it's called Bunger. It's like a skate shop, surf shop, but they do pretty well. Like, they're like real people that run it, you know what I mean? But it's not like a dedicated skate shop. So, it's a hard business, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But, anytime I'm in like a different city, I'll find the shop and visit it and just check it out quietly and, maybe buy a shirt and, I love skate shops still. So
yeah, me too. I just love just going in, and there's a special vibe or something about it.
Yeah.
Probably reminisces of your youth or something. I don't know. There's something going on that's quite pleasant.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay, then I have a few questions from Eric Swisher. So he said, how many times has an interview been your last interview? Do you think you'll ever really stop? And why do we keep doing this? I love that question.
I would say every interview is my last interview. It's like, I just...
Until the next one? Yeah.
Until the next one, yeah. It was funny when I was hanging out with him out there at the 30-year show.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, that was also super awkward for me because it was like, that's like a whole family of people. And I'm like the weird third cousin. And you kind of like, you know what I mean? And it's like, So I was like,
you've been working on this whole thing. I mean,
yeah, I guess so. But you also don't want to interrupt their like 30-year celebration. But So I was hanging out with Eric, and he was like, "What's next?" I was like, "I don't know." He's like, "Are you done?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm done." He's like, "Oh, whatever. I've said that so many times too." So yeah. I don't know. It keeps drawing me back. It's at the end of the day, it is fun, and I get a ton of enjoyment out of it after all the anxieties fade away. So
yeah.
And I just want to try to keep up with that guy, which is impossible.
Yeah. But he's a good person to chase. Yeah, to kind of try to aspire to that level or something. It's I mean, I love what he does. I think he's my like a mentor and someone I aspire to kind of follow his path. I guess in a different way. It's a different format that I do and everything.
Yeah.
But like I love having him as a reference. Like that's the standard, like that's the best. For me, Eric's interviews are the best in skateboarding.
They're the best in skateboarding, and they're so well thought out. And they're like, there's a couple interviews that we've both done, and like I see his questions, we're like, oh, that's good. He's a master of his own craft, and we're all lucky to have him.
For sure. Yeah. Did you do any other interviews with him apart from that one with Andy Jenkins?
No, that's it. Just the Andy one. I would love to do more. I mean,
yeah, you should do more. Yeah, that would be
that
amazing.
made my job. I had so much fun doing that. Because it was just cool to watch him work. Once he finally gave in, he was like, "All right, fine, I'll help you do this." Not that he was like angry, but he was like he didn't want to like step on toes.
Right.
Like totally different style than me. I'm like goofy and like handing the guy shit and like making jokes, and he's like actually thinking and like like I remember Andy answered a question and I was ready to like move on, and Eric just sat there and he's like, "Let's talk about that a little more. Like let's just go a little deeper with that." And I was like, let's go a little deeper."
That's what I was gonna say. Like
yeah. I was about to say that too, but it was super fun to watch him work, and I mean, if I could do if I told him this years ago, I was like, my dream would be I bring the stuff and you do the interviews, and I just sit there and enjoy, and I get to watch it all unfold.
You're like the producer, and he's like the
or I'm just a fly on the wall, like, oh, this is so cool.
Yeah, I hope you guys do more. That would be great.
Yeah. I mean, if he's around and willing, it's like it's always that's a super bonus. But who knows? Who knows what's gonna happen?
Well, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
I have a couple more from him. So he said, it's probably been covered here, but what made you start GuyMariano.com in the first place? What inspired you to do all this? Well, we did touch on it, like about putting up the videos and stuff.
Yeah.
But, did you have other ideas for the name apart from Guy Mariano, or was that like the first one?
I was gonna do NSNGNSNG.com. No slide, nose grind, no slide, nose grind.com. Like, I was gonna do that, like something really stupid like that. And then I wanted to find out. I was like, I should name it after the fabricator of the California picnic tables. So like, I want to find out what those are called, but I never found that out. So I was just like, I'll just run with this.
That's a good idea, actually. Wow. You never found out who made those picnic tables?
No. I'm sure you could now, but this is like, nothing was on the internet back then.
Right? We're talking about early 2000s. Yeah.
Find some picnic table catalog, commercial picnic tables. So.
Okay, this last question is, what's the biggest question that you missed asking in an interview? And yes, you asked me the same question for my Beyond Boards interview.
That's an impossible. I don't know how to answer that. Did I ask him that? Shit.
I think it was along those lines. Maybe not those exact words, but somewhere around there, yeah. He added, "Love you, bud."
Yeah. He's the best. I don't have any off the top of my head, but there's always, it's more like moments. Like, I'll be watching the interview for the final time. I'm like, why didn't I follow up? Like, why didn't I go a little further with that kind of thing? So it's not a specific question, but it's like more of a lack of going down a path a little bit. You know what I mean? Cause I'm always like, all right, we got to keep it moving. And I'm like, sometimes I'm like, I got to learn to slow down a little bit. And like watching him work with Andy, like for that, he works slower and more thoughtful. And I'm just like, all right, we're going to talk about this video now. And you know what I mean? Like, I'm just like more like move it along, So, or at least At least that's how I see myself. So it's more like that, not should have followed up more or something like that.
That's interesting. Yeah, I feel like I'm a bit more like you and what you describe.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting to hear that Eric takes his time and is a bit more like, I guess, patient, or tries to, you know, think about it for a second and be like, oh, should I go deeper with this, or should we move on, or like that's a good way of approaching it, I guess.
Yeah, he definitely like pontificates more. Like I remember Andy said an answer, and again I was ready to move on, and then Eric just goes, "Give us an example." And I was like, "Oh yeah, give us an example. That's perfect." You know what I mean? Like he just he keeps it going like a couple steps, and you can always cut it out later. You know?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
He just wants to go a little deeper, and I'm just like, let's plow through this thing, and I don't want to waste anybody's time.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. So interesting.
So
okay. Okay, this one is an audio one. Let's see.
What's up, Tim? This is Paul Young. I wanted to ask about the Boulevard 4 video. I'm a big fan of that video, like I've told you over the years. Matter of fact, I like Vic'd a lot of my style from it. Generator in the Suburbs. It's a great soundtrack, that whole thing. So I guess be psyched to hear you talk about maybe that time period and like what you were influenced by. Looks a lot different than the Special Sauce video, so there was obviously like a change there. Yeah, I don't know, man. The vectors, the text, like that's a sick ass video. I mean, Justin Humkamp were just watching it the other night. Just elaborate on that time period maybe and like the creative process behind the video. Be super psyched to hear about it. Peace.
Shoot, Paul Young. He's got a new video coming out, Down by Law. I'm looking forward to that. That's gonna be good.
Nice.
Yeah,
cool.
Joe Russo part. Yeah, Boulevard 4, that was after the Special Sauce video, I think. I kind of felt like I was like, this is probably going to be the last video I make. Mm-hmm. So I kind of was like, I wanted to do it as well as I could. I kind of learned some Flash in there, and I cobbled that into Final Cut. And it was just like the end of, like the homie video for me. I was like, I wanted to marinate. I wanted to let it marinate as long as I could and like do the best I could, because I was like, this is probably it. Mm-hmm. And, it was fun. It was more like a chocolate video, the graphics and stuff. So maybe I was just more inspired by that. But I don't know. It was fun, like full parts from all my friends. And it was some of the songs I would switch, but that's always, that's always.
What year did that come out? Do you remember?
Jeez, I don't even know.
Early 2000s again?
2003 maybe, or something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Is it online somewhere?
I don't know.
I found the Special Sauce videos. I know that at least one of them is up there. But
yeah, we only made one of those videos.
It was one. Okay.
I think there's parts out there. I don't know. It's it's like it's very aesthetics. That's where we're getting a lot of inspiration from aesthetics then. But it's nice of him to say. I mean, we made it and it was on a tape and then it was gone. You know what I mean? So it's nice of him to say. I'm a huge fan of Paul's work.
Yeah.
So yeah. I don't know. I don't know what else to say, but I knew it was the end, so I should try. Yeah, which is kind of sad, but it's true.
What's the name of that video he's putting out that you said?
It's called Down by Law.
Oh, okay, like the Jim Jarmusch movie. Okay.
Yeah, so I think it's coming out really soon. I think it's gonna be on Thrasher.
Oh, nice.
So
cool.
He's done a lot of videos. He did the Mother video, but he also did like Bleach and stuff like that. So yeah, he's sick.
Okay, next one is from Farron Golding. So, he said, from Tim's personal golden era, what could have been the coolest, best, imagine if board sponsor moments? For example, Gino Iannucci's surname always looked amazing in Evan Hecock's script for Chocolate. But imagine if Gino had gotten on Alien Workshop and how dope a photosynthesis mosaic era Gino graphic would be. Or another way you could put this, what's his ultimate My Fake Skateboard Company team?
I always thought, I've thought about this. I always thought it would have been really cool to see like Josh Kalis on 101, instead of like Clyde or something like that. Like put Kalis in. Nothing against Clyde, but something like that. Like see like a Kalis 101 thing. Like I always thought that would be cool.
For sure.
My Fake Skateboard Company team. I don't know. I'll go
Bobshirt skateboards.
Yeah, I'll go Gino, Kalis, Dick Rizzo, and that's it. Just a trifecta.
Perfect. Going on a tangent here, but did you watch that Dick Rizzo had a part in this new thing? I don't remember the name of the video, but it came out yesterday.
Yeah, This Is a Window or something like that?
Yes, that one, yeah.
So good, man.
Excellent, yes.
He's so good.
He's
him.
Incredible. Yeah, he's like a Bobby Pulio, like a new version of him or something, like upgraded version or something.
Definitely upgraded. Yeah. I'm a big fan of his skating. It's like there's so many kids now. You gotta just pick 5 and kind of zone in on them. That's how I do it. I'm like, I just get overwhelmed. You know what I mean? So it's like,
well, especially now with SOTY season and stuff. There's incredible video parts every day, and you're getting a little numb. Like it's I was watching the other day the Miles Silvis part.
Yeah.
It's incredible. It's mind-blowing. And my friend was like, oh, he's getting SOTY for sure. And I was like, I don't know. I mean,
I don't know.
He's had 1 or 2 parts this year. Like Tom Knox has had 4 or 5 or something.
Yeah. Even that kid, John Shanahan. He's had, 4 parts? I don't know.
Yeah, and really, really good parts. I mean, nothing against Miles Silvis, but all of this to say that there's just so much incredible skating, especially right now, December. Yeah, it gets a little overwhelming, I think.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, I have just a few more. So this one is from Steven Fletchinger. Did I say his name right?
Yeah. Steve Fletch. You can call him Steve Fletch.
Fletch. Okay. He said, if 101 didn't go under after everyone left, who would you have reconstructed it with? Bonus, who would you put on 101 from the present day?
Oh my God.
I like how they're all picturing you as imaginary TM for...
I know. I just... See, I personally feel like 101 ended at the perfect time. That's the beauty of that brand.
Yeah, left on a high.
Yeah, like Gino and Dill. If anybody else got on 101, I don't think it would have worked that well.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It was also the mystery of the brand. Those guys were pretty elusive, so... I'm going nobody. Nobody's allowed. Nobody's allowed on 101. I remember when Guy Mariano and Costin, before they started Numbers, everyone was like, they're going to start a new brand.
Mm-hmm.
And not that I would want them to start 101 because they're not the right people, but I was like, maybe they should reboot 101. You know what I mean? But I think it's better just to let it die. So nobody. Nobody.
Okay.
Sorry, Steve.
Okay. Next one is an audio one. Let's see.
Hey, Tim. I got a 2-parter for you. The first one should be pretty easy. Watching your skateboarder episode, how often do you nerd out? Whether it's watching an old VHS tape in your VCR or just randomly rummaging through all the stuff you've collected over the years. Second one, probably not as easy. If for whatever reason you had to let go or part ways with all the stuff you've collected, with the exception of one item, what item would that be?
Who's that? Is that Skate Chatter? Who's that?
That's Jimmy Chung.
That's Jimmy. Okay.
Yes.
All right. If I had to grab one thing, I'm going to grab Eastern Exposure 1 because he gave that to me. So I'm running out the door with that. Yeah. And then I totally get side. Man, I love Jimmy Chung. He's my favorite skater, and he's still so good. I would put Jimmy Chung on 101. That's what I'll do. I'll rebuild with Jimmy Chung. I get sidetracked all the time. I'll go into look for some video clip for an interview, and then all of a sudden it's 2.5 hours later I'm flipping through old Big Brother. You know what I mean? So it happens all the time. Yeah. So,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Shout out Jimmy. I would love to interview him again, just a longer form.
Yeah. His was not super long, was it? I haven't seen
it. It was 15 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty short. Yeah.
Yeah, he's
have
the
to
best.
do round 2.
Yeah.
Okay, this one is from Mark McKee. So he ask him if he gave Sarah those shoes yet from his skate shoe collection that are her exact size. I don't recall the brand, but I think they were size 4.
No, I didn't. They were the KCKs that he drew the logo for it.
I was surprised when he sent me that. I was like, he actually designed that thing.
Yeah.
For Duffs, right?
Yeah, for Duffs, yeah. No, I never gave them to her. I'm evil. They would fall apart anyways, but...
Yeah, it's not much of a gift.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, this one is a little longer, but I think it's an interesting one. Let's see.
Okay.
Here's my message for the legendary Tim Anderson, who I first met online a long time ago. He was one of the earliest people on message boards buying old NOS decks. And we went back and forth. I think we were both bidding on stuff, and he won some stuff. And then he reached out to me when he found a lot of original artwork that he knew I'd be into. And then he ended up getting to the stuff that I would have lost my mind for, but he was generous and shared some of that with me in the long run. But my question is, what's the mindset with collecting, selling, and approaching, tracking down historical skate decks. I'd love just to hear him talk about, getting to the place now where he has his organization and they have all of these events. But, at what point do you sell? At what point do you share? And how do you just manage all of the, the impulses and the desire to have all of these things and, knowing that, collections are limited to our, I hate to say it, to our lifespan. But I'd love to hear Tim just expand on that mindset and that desire to have all this amazing stuff and really reconciling the long run of what to do with it and how to keep it in the culture and also for him, deservedly so, how to maximize the value out of it because his collection is insanely valuable. So thanks, Tim. And Quentin, thanks for including my question.
Is that Jake?
Yes, Jacob Rosenberg, yes.
Yeah.
You actually interviewed him back in the day, right? Like
I did.
Those email interviews we mentioned?
So that was actually a good email interview because, it's all dependent on the answers. And he was like super generous with his thoughts and everything. So I would love to do a video interview with him one day, but who knows? Yeah, so present day, I don't buy boards anymore because I'm priced out. They're too expensive for me. The market has gone up way too high, and I can't. A, I don't have the funds to buy what they're worth, and B, it feels selfish at this point in my life to spend that much money on something that is not for the rest of the family, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm sure my kids are going to sell all this shit later on, so whatever. If I don't sell it first, but but when I was like into it hard, it was more affordable but still expensive. I wouldn't leave any stones unturned. Like, this is like the early days of blogs. I found a blog, and in the blog, this guy mentioned this skateboard artist that I've been trying to track down. So I emailed the blog guy. He gave me the number for the artist. Artist had all this original art, and I ended up purchasing it. So it was like back then it was like a lot, like phone books were involved. It was like a lot of, it was harder to find stuff, but you would basically find either the pro skater, you would find the artist, you would find a previous company owner or employee, or you would find the mom. You know what I mean? Or something like that. And like the mom always had the boards, but you would never want to buy off the mom. You know what I mean? But you just want to like see what's going on. And, or they'd be like, my mom has it, I'll sell it, but I got to get to my mom's first, It's it's all about the mom. But, yeah, so it was like a lot of that. Now it's like, you don't know where every board is, but it's like, it's a little easier to track things down.
Sure. Yeah.
But, yeah. And then I have sold some things recently. I sold a couple things during COVID because my work was slow.
Okay.
There's just been some opportunities to sell, and sometimes an offer is too good to say no. So you're like, I don't think I'll ever, you think about the rest of the family. You're like, well, we could benefit from this money, so all right, I'll sell it. It's just stuff at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. No, for
and
sure.
I'm just holding it for the next person, basically. Hopefully it survives. So that's like the whole thing, But trading is fun because there's no money involved, so I still trade.
Did you get hit up a lot after the Skate Hoarders episode? Did you get hit up by people like, I saw that you have this board, for example, in the thing? Would you sell it to me or something?
Sometimes, like, I'll get hit up. I'll get hit up for random stuff. Like, do you have this Jamie Thomas board? I'm like, that's not even on my radar. Like, I don't even know what that is. You know what I mean? It's just like stuff. Like, but
Jamie
I guess people.
Who?
Yeah, no disrespect to Jamie Thomas or Chris Cole or anything like that. But it's just like not in my window, I guess. So, but I guess people are just like trying to get the network going and see who's got what kind of thing, because you never know what somebody has, right? So
sure,
yeah. Because sometimes you're like going to buy one, like back then is like you'd be buying one thing and be like, do you have anything else? And all of a sudden you get a picture with like 20 boards and you're like, holy shit, like this is insane, and do you want to sell it? So it's like, you just got to keep digging a little bit, but that's over. Yeah.
Okay, well, I have just one last one, and we can wrap it up. So this one is from Heckride, from Fred. So he said, hey, Tim, I'm a big fan. I've watched your Skate Hoarders episode a few times, and each time I am just in awe at not just your collection, but how insanely organized you are. What made you want to keep things so organized, and has anything ever gotten damaged before in the past because of carelessness? Also, hopefully Howard didn't damage the Astro Boy board too bad. Much love, keep killing it.
Oh, thanks. That's nice. It wasn't always organized like this. The Deckaid shows forced me to get organized. Like, it used to just be in piles. Yeah. Like Sarah and I were looking at old pictures, and the boards from like the first 2 or 3 Deckaid shows, the boards were just thrown in a car in the back of a, not thrown, but like just stacked in a car, all loose. Yeah. And I remember we did like the Jersey show, and Chris Davis showed up, and all his boards were in boxes. Mm-hmm. And I was like, why aren't I transporting all this shit in boxes? You know what I mean? Yeah. So it just slowly, I got organized just because it just made life easier. And moving skateboards is a pain in the neck. So at least if they're in a box, you know what that weighs, and they can stack easier. So
how many boards do you have in one of these boxes behind you? Like maybe 10, or I guess around there.
It like between 6 and 8 usually.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. And, like, I've had, like, from the Deckaid shows, I've had one of my boards go back to the wrong place and stuff. Like, one of my most valuable boards went back.
Oh, no way.
And I didn't even notice. And he was like, hey, I got your board. I was like, oh, perfect. So, it happens. But everyone's, like, super cool. And, you know. Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, let's wrap it up here. Cool. I feel we could just talk forever, but we've talked for long enough. That's
okay. Great. Yeah. Thank you,
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
All right.
Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Good luck editing.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm going to enjoy this. Yeah, this is going to be great.
All right.
Yeah, no worries about that.
Cool.
That's it for my conversation with Tim. Follow him on Instagram at Bobshirt. Go watch and rewatch all of his epic video interviews on his YouTube page, particularly the most recent ones with Rick Howard, Mike Carroll, Andy Jenkins, Rudy Johnson, and Tony Ferguson. Visit Deckaid.org to check out some of their recent shows and artist collabs and support their amazing work. Thank you for tuning in. See you soon for a new episode of Beyond Board.